just to create one. Even a move like bishop h7 and the game is over. Black should win.
And Benny Vidivici 42 in the Twitch chat goes, Caruana outdated, Sarich overrated, long have we waited, Chessbrahs relegated. Now that is poetry in action.
That's poetry. But anyway, shout out to Fabiano Caruana hanging out in the Chessbrahs. We are moments away from liftoff now.
No, we're not moments away. Game
just started.
Yep.
Game on.
So
Game on,
we
Wayne.
are there. And the match between St. Louis Archbishops and the Chessbrahs is underway, and that's a rematch of the semifinals from a year ago. So you know that these teams are really wanting to battle out, to duke it out for a victory. And I'm starting here with the Fedar Sayef game, right? I mean, Fedar Sayef with the black pieces against Lafang Hua. And well, so far I like Fedar Sayef's position. I tend not to like having a knight on the rim over there on h3. And I think black was just in time to capture the pawn on c4 against his much lower rated opponent. So here...
I brought up all the games while you were saying that as we immediately transitioned there. But okay, so we're sticking with the game between Hua and Fedar Sayef.
Yeah, I just like the fact that you were able to take on c4 and there's no immediate way for white to regain the pawn. I think it's very difficult for a lot of players, especially a lot of lower rated players, is trying to find the exact compensation or the route to regain that pawn. Oftentimes, players focus too much on recapturing the pawn, which can actually lead them to a bad position. So I would play the move f3 if I were white. He started with a3, which I think is a bad move, because now just bishop takes c3 and pawn takes c3. Well, then now black can just castle and eventually work his way to even protect this pawn on b5, excuse me, on c4 with a move like b5.
Interesting. Well, the issue is, why would you... Okay, so bringing the knight from the edge back to f4, I assume, is met simply by a move like g5, and the knight just has to go right back to h3. So I guess white was sort of in an interesting dynamic here in that he didn't quite know. So you're saying f3 would have been the right approach, going for full compensation, forget about the idea of regaining the pawn, and just try to open up the position.
Yeah, I think you have to do that, because what's happening in the game now after a3 is, well, black can just retreat, but taking on c3 and then castling also makes perfect sense. All right, he delays the capture on c3. I think that's perfectly reasonable as well. But at some point, he can always just capture this knight on c3. There are further weaknesses in the light squares on the white queen side, in particular the square on b3. So, I like that the positional nuances all seem to favor black here. And white just has to somehow regain a pawn. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Okay. Well, let's move over to the game for the board 2 for St. Louis today. That is Var Akopian. Not making this season's debut, but he hasn't been playing for the last couple of weeks with guys like Fabiano Caruana in the lineup, as well as Alejandro Ramirez, the little peasant, who was just gifted a sub. But this week, Akopian is in there in typical Akopian fashion, playing an isolated queen-pawn style position. What do you think about this one here?
Well, now the real question is white, Shyam Thavandaren, who's had a good pro chess league debut this year. He went 7 out of 8, I believe, on the Super Saturday. And here he has to make the decision, do you play the move g4, which exposes your own king side, but also forces that bishop to retreat to g6, after which you can either capture on g6 or simply just make a move like rook to e1 and try to play against this isolated pawn. So I hate facing pins. You know, this pin on with the bishop on h5, staring down the queen on d1, but at the same time, playing with like g4 may be a little bit too risky for the international master for the Bras.
Well, the biggest matchup, or at least one of the only GM on GM matchups here in the first round between the bishops and the Bras, is the one between Yaroslav Zherebukh and Grandmaster Eric Hansen. The Chessbrahs trying to recover from what was a very disappointing performance a couple of weeks ago. And the Chessbrahs are currently fighting for their life, not just in terms of the playoffs, but trying to stay out of the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the Atlantic Division. Not a place that many people thought they'd be. So here with Hansen taking on Zherebukh, we have a Maroczy-Bind style position, hedgehog style position. But what do you see here so far?
A slight edge for white here, just the typical opening position where white has a bit more space, better control over the center. In particular, the fact that the d5 square and the b5 square means that black cannot initiate a pawn break for the near future. I would start with the move knight c2 probably for white. Think about bringing the knight over to e3, and more importantly, just opening the queen to the d file. You can make a move like f4 for white. So I just think that a lot of these positional kind of the structure here just favors white, more space, a nice bishop on b2. And the reason why I'm playing knight back to c2 is to avoid the trade of knights. And, okay, he didn't do that because I didn't want to see the black bishop end up on c6 to try to gain more space. So I would play immediately, take on d4, queen takes d4, and b5 for black now.
No, I agree, and I was just about to highlight on the analysis board that I agree with you because, okay, there's obviously disadvantages removing a piece out of the center, right, if we're being dogmatic about what we want to do in chess. But when you have more space, everybody, and you have more squares, therefore more options than your opponent, keeping the pieces on the board is never a bad idea. Black's pieces will continue to wrestle each other for the few squares that they have. So, and I'm surprised to see queen a5. I agree with you fully. I think that after rook c1, it makes sense to capture, even if you're not playing for the move b5, even if you follow it simply by using that c6 square for the bishop that was passive on d7. It feels like that's a little bit of breathing room that black should want. So what is it about these? What is it about this move queen a5 that Eric wants to maintain the tension further before trying to give his minors more room?
Yeah, I guess he's trying to eventually play his move b5, but exactly was played a4 here. Now b5 is not coming anytime soon. And, you know, for black, I guess you can go rook f to d8, but then your queen feels a little bit iffy as well. Your queen doesn't really have a great future from a5. So rook f d8 seems perfectly logical, like a reasonable move. Eventually, white can consider playing bishop a3 himself, just putting more pressure on the d6 pawn. So I think both players have it under control for now, but we'll see if that trend continues.
A shout out to the Twitch chat and Chess TV chat. I'm aware that I transitioned to the wrong scene there, being a production manager here. I do have the lights off in my office whenever I'm not on camera. For those wondering why, it's because I'm a total creeper and I like to work in the dark. Actually, no, it's because these lights are pretty powerful in here. So that's why sometimes I accidentally show from a dark room. So just want to let people know that I love acknowledging when that happens. All right, where are we going next, Robert?
Well, it looks like another match just got underway, and that's the match between Buenos Aires and Miami. But I guess before we go there, do we have to look at the last board between the Archbishops and the Chessbrahs, and that is Forrest Chen with the white pieces against Ivan Saric.
Yeah, and Forrest Chen, is Forrest going to run today? What's your prediction for your boy Forrest?
I mean, I like his position, Danny. He's got the two bishops. Yes, black has the typical compensation with the rook barreling down the pawn on b2. So right now, if black got a free move, rook takes b2 is a big threat, followed by knight takes f3 check, picking up the queen on the b2 square. So that's something that white really has to keep in mind. That said, a move like rook went f4. So why is f4 good?
What happens if rook takes b2? The knight is almost trapped, but not for the tactic on b2. Is Chen missing that move? I don't think so. Queen e1 still keeps the question to the knight here, but queen e1, there may be some rook b3 action happening where your bishop on e3 is also a little bit iffy. Yes, so queen e1, rook b3 looks like a good move. Yeah. I wonder if Forrest just flat out missed the move rook takes b2 here, because
it seems like it, because he's spending time on his follow-up. If you saw rook takes b2, you would have your follow-up prepared when you spent over a minute on f4. So a very strange.
And again, from the perspective that you just said you liked his position, you just cursed him. So we knew this was going to happen, actually. So this is your fault again.
I mean, it's always my fault. I'm a middle child. I'm used to taking the blame.
Middle child syndrome comes out. Oh man, that was classic. All right. Where are we going next? Let's move on before we get therapy from you about what it is to be a middle child. That, of course, coming from an oldest child. So where we go? We got the next matchup starting, as you said, between the champs and the Krakens.
Yeah, so why don't we start with, I don't know, which one of these many...
Julio Becerra, that's our boy.
Yeah, I'm a big Julio Becerra fan because, he's not as well known anymore. He was known in the U.S. Chess League, not as known for over the board chess, because he doesn't play in tournaments that frequently anymore, but incredibly strong grandmaster who was in many U.S. championships. And here, we're at the very beginning of the game with the black pieces. Nothing really to speak about yet, but he's playing Maxi Perez, and I believe Maxi went 3.5 out of 4 last week. Mm-hmm. And so that's clearly a dangerous player, and Julio will need to neutralize him if Miami is going to have a good shot at winning this week.
Well, one of the things I'm showing and sharing with the fans here, We'll go back to what our pre-match predictions were for the Bras and Bishops, everybody. But you can see that the most likely result we have going down between the champions and the Krakens today is a tied match. And we will keep you updated as what the pre-match predictions look like compared to the live stats based on what actually happens on the board. Robert, of course, picked the champions to just barely edge out the Krakens here. All right, the next board for the Krakens and the champions. Here we go.
Who's on that board there? I see Oliver Barbosa.
Yeah, I was going to say Delamorta and Barbosa is a good one to go to next.
Yeah, Delamorta is just such a great name, but Barbosa is the
Delamorta is clearly a character from Count of Monte Cristo, right? I mean, isn't that the guy that gets locked in prison, Delamorta?
Yeah. No, that's a good call there. But I don't think, at least he's trying not to get locked in prison in this one. And I like Black's position, even though I know, as a chess player, I have to be objective, right? And I know that White should be probably slightly better because you can make advancements on the queen side with moves like b4. That said, I always love the semi-open f-file.
Agreed.
It's just like, to me, it's just like, I'm going to use my rooks. I'm going to make a move like knight h5 eventually, go knight f4, and just take over that f-file and maybe threaten some sacrifices. So
we've seen this structure played so many times. While you and I were doing commentary together, I feel like we saw some games between Karyakin and Nakamura in their speed chess match where we see this idea of using the f-file, but it can also backfire if Black gets too aggressive, thinking that he has enough to go for an all-out checkmate attack. You only have the knights here. You don't have a lot of minor pieces left, right? So eventually, if White's patient, the positional edge that might exist because of Black's worse structure can kind of play into this game later on, right?
Right. No, for sure. And it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of when people are growing as chess players, they often play these kind of Italian game positions and like that slight advantage for White. But I also feel like against when the person with the black piece is stronger, they end up getting this kind of annoying, nagging pressure and end up showing their might over there on the king side. So,
are you still growing?
No, I haven't grown since I was like 12.
As a chess player?
So, sorry, I took that in the quite literal way.
All right, Rainier Gonzalez is taking on Mario Villanueva. What do you got here? Gonzalez versus Villanueva.
I think it's early. I think this is actually the best matchup in terms of the entire team situation because they're about even by rating. Yes, Gonzalez is a grandmaster, but I guess on the terms of just purely rating spectrum, he is a low-rated grandmaster, and so Villanueva with the black piece is a chance to hold him off. That said, I'm just I'm going to be honest for a second. Buenos Aires disappoints me every single week.
Okay. And this is not just because your roommate is Argentinian, because Anton Squirmy he forgot where your roommate was from.
I knew you were going to call me out for that, and I was waiting for it. So I felt emotionally prepared this time. Mm-hmm. That said, Mario Villanueva is 4 out of 16 in the chess league this year, I believe. I looked up that earlier, and so he's not doing so well himself. So Gonzalez, a pro, former U.S. chess league player, and what is that F6? I mean, yeah, maybe it's a decent move, but just if you highlight those pawns on F6, G6, and H6, you have no pawns, and E6. You have no pawns defending each other.
That's a move that I almost would suggest was like an accidental mouse slip, and that's just because the small Russian schoolboy inside me just died. Opening up his king side there is, how is Black not going to seriously regret that positional disaster he's just created over here on the king side?
Yeah, and even the move Bishop F4 here, right? Just totally taking over.
This is like straightforward chess. This almost looks like a French defense, and you know how we feel about the French.
Yeah, it was a French defense, so that's why it looks like it, Danny. You're
I was testing you.
Well, now actually Black may be able to go E5, so I don't know if I...
Maybe White should have played Bishop F4, huh?
No, actually, well, E5, knight takes E5, rook E6, right? Can I just do that? I think so. So maybe...
Yeah, but there's still potential consequences of playing E5 here for Black. Like D4 immediately?
After E5?
E5, D4? I'm just throwing things out for kicks and gigs here.
Then can you go e4 or something like that, or
Yeah,
just
I
take
thought
on
maybe
d4.
I could play knight e5. Although I guess if you just capture and play rook e6, that pawn on e5. I mean, I was looking at some lines where like we go all out crazy. White plays f4 at the end of that line, and but leaving black with a big center may not be ideal. Though my issue is that if white can get a move like c4 in, Robert, just philosophically, right, undermining the d5 pawn, the e4 pawn, at some point that might be an issue for black.
Right, but I think he did go e5. The
Yeah.
problem is after d4, you're going to lose your d4 pawn right away, because after e4, after knight e5, I just take on d4. And so, you are correct in that black has some kind of, white has some counter chance in the center, potentially, but I think it's just a bad position. So I think, I'm guessing Rainier overlooked this move e5.
All right. Shout out to Grandmaster Jan Ludwig Hammer, who is in the chat. He suggests, Robert, that if bishop f4 was played, black would have played rook takes f4, sacrificed the exchange, and then played knight f5.
I would have done that in a heartbeat if I were playing with the black piece as well, but I think that at least in that situation, there's a material imbalance that should favor white, at least on paper. And while black has clear compensation, in fact, they're probably a pretty decent position, white can respond with a move, I don't know, maybe like bishop h3 in that line or something like that. And, white's definitely still kicking and has more control of the board than he does now. Interesting
stuff, yeah. All right. Well, shout out to GM Ben Feingold. Lots of chess players and commentators hanging out in the chat, and, of course, all of our subs. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Fedar Sayef has already won. Chess Bay knocking on the door for us and reminding us that we're missing the action. What happened here? Let's go over to this game where Big Fish 1995 takes down Lufeng. I mean, wow. Did the wheels come off quickly in this game? Let's take a quick look at it as we see St. Louis already on the board with a victory. What happened here, Robert? Help me, Robert.
Well, as soon as I went to look at the game, it disappeared because all these other games are, but I found it again. And so earlier in this game, it looks like, well, we saw it early, right, when the move a3 was played.
Yeah, we didn't like a3. We wanted him to do something more aggressive with compensation. But going through it, black played bishop f5 and defended the e-pawn. It seems like these moves just played themselves for Fedar Sayef, and he wins a second pawn like it's nothing. So just not the right approach for Hua. I think as you said, I think he needed to play f3, needed to do some things much differently than he did. And Fedar Sayef owned the center and had an extra pawn, and then just simply won that knight on h3 on move 22 because it was trapped. And Fedar Sayef has put the bishops in control of that matchup currently against the Chessbrahs.
Yeah, and really a very easy battle for him because I knew that was going to happen because once a player who is outrated, not always, but oftentimes they really try to get that pawn back, and they put all the attention there, and what he did clearly did not work out for him. And Fedar Sayef collected another pawn and then a piece and then converted it without any difficulties whatsoever.
No, it's a great point. I think it is a good lesson for all those watching that if you sacrifice a pawn, you can't instantly go into panic mode about the pawn that you just sacrificed. You have to play for the compensation. And I had many students who used to play the Benko Gambit, for example, Robert, and constantly make the same sort of psychological mistake, right? Give up a pawn because it's part of the opening and then spend the rest of the game panicking that they're down a pawn. It just doesn't work. All right. Yaroslav Zherebukh, Eric Hansen. This one is about to heat up with only 3 minutes on the clock for white, and he just played this move g4. Tell me, baby girl, what's happening here, Robert?
Whoa. Okay, well, that bishop wants some freedom, but what is it getting it, right? If black goes e takes f4 here, and then white captures on f5, then black can go g5, further shutting down this bishop on h3. Now black has two passed pawns over there. On the king side, the knight will find its way to e5. So I think that I really like Eric Hansen's position.
I agree. I love Eric's position here.
Perhaps the rook will find its way to e6, and that can be annoying. Well, very annoying, because the d6 pawn is clearly vulnerable. So,
why is g4 played? What is the... I guess from the perspective that white doesn't like the future of this bishop on h3 without prying open the c8, h3 diagonal, it's natural, but... Such a double-edged move to pry open your own king like that with the g-pawn. I mean, I guess we shouldn't underestimate the dynamic potential here. White has the bishop here, poking at the d6 pawn. If diagonals and files became open and black didn't get attacking chances against the king, then then white's okay. But I expect Eric to play g5, as you said, and I just don't buy that this e5 outpost square for the knight, and that these 2 pawns on g5 and f4 won't be good enough for black to be better.
Well, I guess white will go rook e6, right? So g5, rook e6, attacking the pawn on d6, not letting you knight e5 easily.
But okay, so then maybe bishop e5? I guess then g5 is maybe a problem with moves like queen h5. Okay, so maybe there's...
Okay, I kind of like that decision. So he's sacrificing an exchange, saying,
yeah,
if you take on g6, I'll just... Well, maybe actually play rook c7 there, but I was going to say...
Well, both are interesting here. I mean, he could take on g6 and say, if you give up this bishop, your king will forever be naked on the light squares, or rook g7 instead. I like that idea.
Something tells me that white's doing very well here because, okay, rook c7 is played, and I guess you don't have to take on h7 because that may help black just swing a rook over. So maybe start with bishop e6 check and then go for the move c5. Just like, it's a thematic break saying I'm going to get a past d pawn, and then it leaves the knight on e5 a little bit loose as well. So playing for the move c5, I think, is a good strategy to go by. I don't know. It's very complicated, very double-edged, and the time situation will be a huge factor with Hansen up well over a minute on the clock.
Yeah, and we also know that Eric, of course, is one of the best time scramblers on the planet, and certainly has a lot of experience on chess.com with that. So we'll see. We'll see how this one finishes out. The other game that's nearing time pressure between the Bras and the Bishops is the one going down, the Akopian matchup versus Thavon-Dieren.
Wow, this is a hectic position for sure because h3 is hanging, but so is g6, and whose pawn is more important? I have to think that black's pawn is the more important one because if queen takes h3, queen takes g6 check, the king is forced to the back rank, maybe. At
least the d8 square is guarded, though, by the knight. That helps.
Yeah, and I actually was thinking, can white then go rook fd1 and just, does black even have a threat? Oh, well, rook g3 check.
Yeah, rook g3 might, probably enough for a draw. I'm not sure that white wins on that. Does black win? Oh, black does win because you win the e1 rook with check.
Right, the rook on f1 will be hanging. So I think rook fd1, my idea actually wasn't even to protect it. I honestly overlooked rook g3 check. My idea was just to put the rooks on the same place and go rook d8 check as my threat. So I simultaneously threaten rook d8 check, but allow this perpetual rook g3 check, pawn takes g3, queen takes g3 check, queen h3, queen g3.
Well, it makes this one a really wild one because Akopian is probably calculating exactly the lines you're talking about. Can I afford to take h3 and give up what looks to be a devastating pawn? But where's white's next move now that my knight guards d8? And if you can't play rook e1 because of rook g3, Robert...
Wait, also, you take on g6 first. After queen h3, take that, right? And then play rook fd1. And I think it just should peter out into a...
Oh, rook fd1. I thought you were saying rook fe1.
Oh, no. Rook f1 would not be a lovely looking move.
Right, but rook g3 check gets black a draw anyway.
Yeah, so I think black should go for this draw, but that's a good result for the Bras because Thavon-Dieren's, 200, almost 300 points underrated here.
Right.
Or lower rated, I should say,
right.
Not underrated.
Agreed. All right, well, we'll see. So as this one nears the time pressure stage with the lower-rated player at 1:40, but Akopian not up too much on time. What about board 4? Okay, look at this. So black decides to defend the g6 pawn. We will come back to this one, but let's check out the action on board 4. Forrest Chen is, well, we're not going to stay on this one too long. Forrest Chen looks like he's about to, I don't know.
He's not happy.
It's not great. Okay, so there are other matchups starting as well. Remember that if you don't like the games we are covering, everybody, just go to chess.com/live if you're at Twitch TV/chess, or click any of the buttons below the chess.com TV player, and you will instantly be following all the games of your favorite team. So the matchup between the Pawn Grabbers and the Sopranos is underway, Robert. We got to start with our boy, Shaba Daba Ding Dong, taking on Tom Bartel. What do you see?
And first is a matchup of great usernames here with Super Bliss and Spinal Tap. But what do I see here? Black's position, frankly, looks terrible. I see many, many holes in the position, particularly the c6 square. White has more space, has better pieces, and knight on b7 is terrible as well. And so in typical Shaba fashion, I expect him to somehow make this game crazy with an eventual sort of queen h3 or something and get back into it. But Tom Bartel is very strong player in his own right, and I just really hate Shaba's position. Did I stress that enough today, that I hate Black's position here?
You know what? I might have missed you, but that's just because I'm hard of hearing. I'm sure the other fans got you. All right, well, maybe a pawn grabber's position that you don't hate might be a Wonder Liang taking on Raven Stewart. As you said, the hero, when the pawn grabbers pulled the upset, the 11% predicted, they were predicted only by 11% to win, which I was called out for on Twitter, even though I didn't make these stats. But hey, I get blamed for a lot of things at chess.com. That's okay. But the pawn grabbers pulled the upset in large part because of Wonder Liang's victory over Fabiano, Robert. What's going on in this game here against Raven Stewart?
Yeah, I think Raven is a perfectly reasonable position at this point. White has...
But so does a Wonder, okay? It's no wonder you have bias against a Wonder.
You just want to sound like Dr. Seuss, hoping that your kids are watching. They think that you're as poetic as the Lord.
My kids do not think I'm poetic. All right.
Well, as they shouldn't. But in this position, would you be surprised if a Wonder plays the move G5, saying, your position is solid, but I'm going to go G5, eventually go G4, and then maybe go C5, and really try to break.
You might even also play G5 and H6 and sort of fianchetto the old-fashioned way, right? And kind of sit on the position a little bit as Black. Not the worst idea. I think the big issue I have with Black's position is this knight on A6, and how long am I going to be okay with that? Worries
it's not
me.
looking good. And by going C5, you actually help the knight get back into the game. So C5, of course, is possible now. G5 is a good idea to mix things up because Raven Stewart is a very solid player who actually went to high school with my brother. So I've known him for quite a long time. He's from New York, and he became an international master. He's been doing well. And these are the type of games where it's kind of a tricky situation for Pittsburgh. You need this win. Right? You need to beat the low-rated players, but he's not low-rated by any means. He's a talented international master. So G5 is one of those moves where you play to win, but it also can come back to haunt you because, well, that's a really exposed king side.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wait for a Wonder to figure out, okay, the move Queen E8 played, not a bad move coming to the light square diagonal, kind of simultaneously both defending this knight on A6, Robert, by guarding the A4 square and maybe preparing Queen to C6. So okay, so that game continues on, but we got to bop over to, it looks like Eric Hansen. Hansen has lost on time, but without showing, because it's a longer time control, we're not showing the point seconds. Clearly he has some point seconds, and you're wondering exactly what's going on in this game with Cruel Yarrow, where Yaroslav is now getting low on time himself.
Wait, I'm very confused because you can't have under 2 seconds left with a 2-second increment. So it's literally impossible. Both of them have flagged on my screen.
Both of them have flagged on your screen? Maybe one of them has disconnection issues.
And same with Akopian versus Shiem. It looks like Shiem is completely winning in the game, but somehow they both have flags. So I don't know if that's just on my end or if that's a...
It must just be on your end and my end as observers because we both see zeros, yet both sides have moves being made. So clearly this is an issue here with chess.com and how we're relaying the time.
Okay, I refreshed the page and now everything is normal for me. So I can tell you what time situations
Interesting.
are.
Okay, well hopefully we will track that down soon. I will also refresh the page, taking the advice of my partner. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
buddy.
so I see that in the Varuzhina game, Akopian game, he is, well, now he's down how many pawns? 1, 2, he's down 2 pawns, and now Shiem is, well, he blundered a rook. So that could be up there for a blunder of the week potential.
And he loses on time.
Where they both, I don't really understand what's going on with the clock situation. They both are seemingly down on time. So I don't know what's going on here, but Shiem is just up a full rook, but king is still not that safe, which means that he could somehow blunder into a checkmate. And Yaroslav, and they both have like seconds left. Yarrow is also winning against Eric Hansen up in exchange and actually probably going to mate his Hansen soon. So both, that's good for the Bras on the Akopian game and bad for the Bras in the Hansen game. So yeah, they're both fighting it out. Right. It looks like Varuzhan is mated on the H8 square coming up. So a really nice game by Shiem. And I was saying Shiem is dangerous. This guy's a 23.99 international master. He had a great Super Saturday. And now he beats Varuzhin Akopian, one of the strongest grandmasters in the U.S. And Yaroslav did win his game.
Well, it's a huge victory, too, for the Chessbrahs here. As we look at the pre-match predictions, remind everybody that the Bishops were slightly favored. We'll keep you updated as the live results go. Okay, well, the next matchup has also gotten underway. That is the one between the... What do we have here? We have Sean Nagel taking on Laquang Liem, the Blizzard and the Windmills. Andrew Tang is also underway.
By the way, Julio Becerra did win his game with the black pieces in quite a convincing fashion against Maxi Perez. And the end of the game was actually quite brutal. So Maxi Perez did not live to tell the tale in his game against Julio Becerra. So where are we jumping to?
We can go anywhere. It's like a magical train. We can go anywhere.
I used to have a Thomas the Tank Engine, so I'm a big fan of that. And I don't know. There's too many options. I'm having trouble deciding. Take me somewhere, Danny. You tell me.
Let's go to the Tang train. Tang train is in an interesting, weird opening against Grandmaster Ashwin for the Windmills. This should be one that gets pretty dynamic here, I think. The Blizzard will obviously be having to ride the Tang train to a victory if they are expecting to do that against the Windmills, especially because Laquang Liem is in action there for Webster.
Yeah. I mean, so far it's early in this Tang game against Ashwin, but Ashwin's been doing very well in the league. So, Tang is well known to the chess community, and especially for streaming and his bullet chess. But Ashwin's, I'm gonna try to pull up his record here, but I believe he's been having an excellent 2018 Pro Chess League. And as I see his record, he is 9.5 out of 12, performing at 27-16. So he's performing 250 points above his rating. So let's see who else is playing, because right now it's too early in this Tang game to really have anything of interest. And well, we didn't get to your boy Rosenthal. So Nicholas Rosenthal with the white pieces against the lone Argentine grandmaster Andres Obregon, and Obregon just made this move F5, and wow, I wasn't expecting that move to be played, considering the fact that it seems to make the black king a little bit weaker and more exposed. But somehow it looks like black's idea is that if en passant, maybe to take with a king on F6 and try to put a rook on the G file. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's exactly what he's about to do. He takes en passant, but if the champions start off with a win by their board 4 over the board, maybe board 1 or board 2 for the Krakens, obviously your prediction that the champions win this match, it will be looking really good, because this is as big as an upset as you can get.
I don't really see how white loses this game. Yes, white's pawn structure now is a little bit worse.
Yep.
Because you've split pawns in d4 and f3. But I don't see how the black king will ever find safety. And if you trade rooks on the g7 square, well, white can just sit a queen on e3, for example, or try to just make some kind of perpetual check happen. And I just don't see how black is going to win a game like this. So it's been very well played by Nicholas Rosenthal thus far.
Yeah. Well, there's a threat of mate on the board, and if you have to, okay. I was going to say if you have to trade rooks, queen and pawn ending is a problem, but queen h6 at least threatens to trade rooks with check. If you check on g7 and white trades, you gain a tempo and can then recover slightly. But still one where white shouldn't lose this. Short of a time pressure blunder, Rosenthal is already on his way to getting at least a draw as board 4 versus one of the top players for the Kraken. So this is a good start for Miami right now. Rainier Gonzalez and Mario Villanueva are getting under time pressure. Let's check on this one. There's still a lot of action on this board, given that neither side is going to have very much time to think about it here pretty soon.
Yeah, and there's a problem on f2 square. After queen takes d4, if black plays that, there are 4 black pieces staring down this f2 pawn. And that's a scary pawn to lose if you're white, because black has a dark square bishop. That said, the fact that there will be opposite color bishops, white has a light square bishop remaining, that does give white decent chances to hold a...
Well, and the key is that white's able to, I guess, take care of d3 with tempi before it's too late, right? Queen d4, knight d3 guards f2, which is critical for white to now be able to capture on d3 and not just be losing everybody after a move like rook takes f2. So we'll see. Okay. Villanueva does capture. I expect Gonzalez to capture on d3 very quickly here. Yep, he does that. And the question is, are you taking on d3 with the rook or the queen, Robert? Think fast.
I think you take it with the queen, because you take it with the rook, then rook takes f2 happens.
Okay, he does it.
No, that's a mistake, I feel like. Because now the rooks will just...
the rooks go immediately from trading queens to dominating the second rank. I agree with you, right? Rook takes e2 comes in, and b2 is falling, and then the threat of rook f8 to f2 is also on the table. So...
although, the thing is, once you get those rooks on your 7th rank, but the 2nd rank, the bishop just moves away from g2, and it's not that easy to see exactly how black makes the progress that he needs. Because let's say you start with rook d6 here, just trying to spy on the g6 pawn, and if after rook d6, rook f2, then perhaps white can just move this bishop away, and I don't know what square to move it to, but I feel like bishop takes b7 is possible. And I don't know, then black goes e4, and I'm kind of scared. So I don't know how to fully escape this for white.
Well, right now we see that the bishops and the Bras finished their first round tied 2-2. Eric Hansen did go on to beat Yaroslav Zherebukh, I believe. No, Zherebukh beat Hansen.
Yes,
but
Zherebukh beat...
but Akopian lost on board 2. So that was the upset that the Bras needed to maintain even.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll keep our eye on that matchup, everybody. The champions and the Krakens are where we are right now, with these games getting under time pressure. Rosenthal still on the attack here. What?
I was going to say, by the way, Delamorta ended up defeating Oliver Barbosa, so the Buenos Aires got a much-needed victory in that one.
Absolutely. Now, I said Rosenthal was on the attack here, but actually, somehow this is backfired, where it looks like black is coming in via the back door. And the white king is in more trouble than it was before.
Yeah, the good news for white is that even if the rook comes to h1, which is quite threatening, there's not a follow-up after queen to e5, right? So the queen on the f1 square is the only one you can use,
right?
But the king will b3. So that's the good news. The bad news is I don't have to play rook h1 and can try to find some sort of better-looking move, like rook h6 maybe. The idea being, if your queen now removes itself from the 2nd rank, I'll give you a check on the 2nd rank myself.
Right.
Rook h5.
Well, he plays rook h5 to prevent queen e5. I think that's a nice sort of grandmaster playing against a lower-rated player, Robert move, right? He just kind of prevents Rosenthal from having any obvious solutions to his problem of his king on f2, right? Just by taking away this square, putting white in kind of a non-forced zugzwang.
And queen e3 is a great decision because the rook endgame has amazing drawing chances. Yes, white's pawns are split over there on d4 and f3, but queen e2, queen e3, white should continue playing and saying, you know what, if you're not going to trade queens, you have to figure out where your queen belongs. So the very good decision and a very quick decision by Nicholas Rosenthal to stay in this game because he is playing a grandmaster and he is fending him off well for the time being.
Well, we can see that we have another game drawn by agreement now, though we still have a weird situation with white. Black had 0 seconds on the clock, but apparently didn't have 0 seconds. Villanueva draws Rainier Gonzalez, so that also helps the Krakens with a mini upset. Makes this game here between Rosenthal and Obregon even more important. Obregon, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, definitely an important game, and so far Rosenthal has been doing well. Now, actually, the Black King is the one that's looking like it's in more trouble than anything because that queen on c3. Okay, I guess you have to go king f6 here maybe, but after king f6, you can always go queen back to e3 and try to hold the balance.
Yeah.
What?
Well,
Black's not.
He's threatening queen c7, and Obregon doesn't have an immediate answer. So now the Grandmaster is really down on time.
Yeah.
No moves played yet. Will he run out of time?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question because yeah, he
Okay,
hasn't
well,
moved.
apparently black has no time, but we're going to assume that he does. And he wins by resignation. Why does black resign here?
There's no way black resigned here. Oh, wait a second. The queen is trapped. So after king f6, rook g1.
King f6, rook g1. So he resigned because queen c3 just simply was a fork, guarding escape squares for the black queen and threatening queen c7. So after king f6, everybody, black would have just lost the queen anyway. Wow.
And Nicholas Rosenthal chatted on this chess.com in his game. He goes, I didn't even see rook g1, LOL. So he didn't even see that rook g1 was trapping the queen. That is so hilarious.
He didn't even see that he was winning in the position, but that's a strange decision there from Obregon to resign. One that helps Miami take a lead, jump out to a 2.5, 1.5 lead after the first matchup here. Well, it's been a little bit of a weird start here to the Pro Chess League right now. We're gonna move on to some of the games that are once again getting under serious time pressure. First, we have the one between a Wonder Liang and Raven Stewart, where Stewart is a little better here as white for sure, though unfortunately getting under time pressure.
Yeah, Raven Stewart is not doing good on the clock management train here, but he does have I'm trying to think if his position is actually better. Yes, there's a bunch of black pawns and dark squares. Is he going to trade on? I guess you can trade on e7 and not be at real risk of losing because there's no entry points for black. So after bishop takes e7, king e7, pawn to b4 for white, black's king can't actually enter. So that should be a draw, it seems. But maybe it's not also ideal either. Yeah, I think you just take on e7 and play b4, and there are no infiltration points for the black king. So that should just end in a pretty simple draw. And it's a good draw for Sturt. I mean, he's a talented player, but a Wonder certainly is the far stronger player. And he held him what looks like a very solid game to start off. Yeah. And as I said, Shaba's going to make this interesting. He's going to mix it up. And, I think he's mixed up in a bad way for him because there's a knight on e6.
Yep.
There's a bishop on d4 and a queen on g3, all staring at this pawn on g7. I don't even see a good move to defend all of those pieces because a move like queen to h7, for example, will just run into knight takes g7 anyway because the rook on e8 is not defended, and the knight will just eventually move away with discover check if you don't take it. And so, for example, if queen h7, knight takes g7, rook takes e1, simply rook takes e1, and if you then play bishop takes g7, you get mated on the back rank with rook e8 checkmate. So remember, Danny, how I was saying the position was awful, and I didn't really want to talk about it? This position is like 50,000 times worse. So,
how does he do that? How does Shaba get in such bad positions? He might be the difference between him playing white on the attack versus black is a pretty big one. We should run some stats on that. Because you're right,
yeah.
he's just about to get crushed here.
Yeah, I have no words for how unfortunately he's been playing, and this game is not doing him any favors, and definitely not doing his team any favors, I should say.
All right. Well, if Bartel gets this victory, and a Wonder Liang is not able to take care of Raven Stewart, the Sopranos are fulfilling your prediction that they would do well today against the Pawn Grabbers. Let's check in with the matchup we've really given almost no love to so far, starting with where we first touched base. Okay, Andrew Tang is still in a not necessarily beginning stages, but it's not that exciting. against Grandmaster Ashwin. Mauricio Flores taking on who I believe is Katerina Nemcova.
Oh, Katerina. She was one of the players in the U.S. women's team when I coached, so I know Katerina very well. And whom is she playing right now?
She's playing Mauricio Flores.
Okay, let me try to find.
She looks to be doing just fine as white, although black has a nice knight on e5, and positionally, the more I look at it, the more I like black.
So I'm trying to pull up that game really quickly here. What is... Oh, there, Katerina. There she is. Katerina 68. Whoa. Okay, so lots of pieces on the e-file. That's the first thing that I noticed. And, oh, wait, the knight on e6 is currently under attack, but I guess Katerina wants Mauricio to take on e6 because once the pawn captures on e6, there might be some problems on the diagonal with pins on the d5, g8 situation. But if you take on g7 from Katerina's point of view, you get stuck with a really lousy light square bishop against a very, very, very strong knight on e5. So you kind of are forced to, and as Mauricio takes on e6, well, wait a second. Actually, after d takes e6, black will go g5, and the white queen has nowhere actually to go. So not looking very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know what's going on here.
Wow, black is now on the attack. Nemcova going the wrong direction in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, the queen is retreating over to h2. Now this knight on e5 looks even stronger than it did a second ago, and you can just take on f3 next and then take on e6, and it looks like white might even get checkmated with his queen already imprisoned.
This is a problem for the queen there, completely trapped on h2, not where she intended to be. Okay, well, if Flores does what he's, I guess, kind of supposed to do, right, against Nemcova, not a huge surprise. What are the other games going on here? We have Akshat Chandra. Oh, no, that's the... no, that is the matchup for the Blizzard versus the Windmills. What's going on in this one? GM on GM action.
Well, I just see that Baseba Min lost on time. So I wonder if that's actually him losing on time because he has one bar for his connection and lag. So it looks like he just lost on time because of a connection issue. And that means that it says Mike Braden, but it's Mika Braden. So that the name situation is still off for Mika Braden. But the board 4 for the pawn grabbers upsets the board 1 for the Montclair Sopranos. So both Shaba, the board 1 for Pittsburgh, and then Basem Amin, the board 1 for Montclair, have lost their opening games.
Okay, well, nice for the pawn grabbers because when their free agent, when the free agent of the opponent loses, that helps them when Shaba gets such a bad position. So, and Basim actually did lose on time, so that's a hard thing to swallow. You never want to lose on time, right? You'd rather blunder your way than just let yourself run out of time, but it does happen sometimes when you're in a time scramble. All right, where to go? There's a lot of action. Remind everybody, again, thank you for being here, wherever you're tuning in, chess.com TV, Twitch TV/chess. You can follow any of the games you want at chess.com/live as Robert and I attempt to take you to the most exciting moments and find some cool stuff going on. Robert, any ideas of where to go next? Of course, the next round between the Bishops and the Bras is underway. We have Big Fish, 1995. Everyone knows that is Mr. Fedar Sayef. So starting out, the live stats had the Bishops favored over the Bras. You can see the stats before the match got underway right now in front of your screen, everybody. After round 1, a slight increase in the Bras' direction, given that they weren't favored, to maintain a tied match. So we'll keep our eye on that. But right now, we'll see if the international master who took down Akopian in the first game can do it again against Fedar Sayef, because the Bras are going to need his help.
Yeah, the Bras will need his help, but also speaking of the Chessbrahs, Eric Hansen destroyed Forrest Chen, and Forrest Chen's username on chess.com is a murder castle, and well, his castle was definitely murdered in this one. He got mated over there on the F file and just got absolutely obliterated. So not a good look for Forrest Chen thus far. But the game you were just discussing, Danny, with Shiem, Tavanderen, and Fedar Sayef, It's one of those positions that are immensely complicated. Black is playing over there on the queen side. White will eventually play on the king side with ideas with knight to g5, and the f pawn might start rolling. But I kind of like what black has done thus far, because a move like knight g5, while it may threaten knight takes f7, you have to be very careful about that. Perhaps black can just play rook to a7, right? So if knight g5 or knight...
Very rare you see the 7th rank so clear so early in the game like that, that's even a defensive resource.
Yeah, knight d2 is weird because knight a5 is what black wants to do anyway. So I guess white is going to try to go bishop d3, rook b1, and try to get after this b pawn. But can't black just park a bishop on a4? So if bishop d3, then bishop d7, and then, if you're rook b1, then black goes bishop to a4, and all of a sudden that pawn on b3 is hard to actually get at. So I think that black has very clear compensation for the sacrificed pawn. That said, it's going to be difficult for black to castle with the pawn on h5. So I don't like that move, but maybe it's fine. Yeah, I was a bigger fan of just parking the bishop on a4, as I'd mentioned. Because now...
Well, you mentioned Eric Hansen got a quick win, and while you were giving the commentary of Fedar Sayef's strange play on the queen side, I pulled up that game because we have to show just how quickly this might be the game of the week so far, and certainly one that Grandmaster Eric Hansen has been looking for as he attempts to help the Chessbrahs work their way out of a hole in the Pro Chess League. I got to show everybody what happened here and the risks of developing your light square bishop in any type of opening where your queen side might quickly become under fire. Because after the move knight e5 and in a very quick development, e6, g4, bishop g6, this is not a totally unknown idea for white to just be so aggressive here and all out. And eventually, after eliminating the light square bishop, the position just opens up and white just crushes black on the light squares. e4, takes on d5, and goes on to just mate black in the middle of the board. What a terrible game for black. I don't even know what else to say. Like, what a terrible game.
Yeah, I mean, everything sort of went wrong, and the move g4 earlier in the opening was the one that ended up winning the game for Hansen. And the reason why it was even possible was because Forrest Chen probably thought he had the square covered, but there were queen a4 check ideas that he might have overlooked. And so
the pawn grabbers did get the much-needed victory, by the way, with a Wonder Liang eventually coming back to win, and actually did legitimately win on time against Raven Stewart, who misplayed the transition into the king upon ending. It might even already have been lost in what was the final position on the board. I'm not sure, but yeah, it looks like he is, with black's king being much more active and just having the extra c6 pawn. So huge win there for the pawn grabbers, who take the first round of play against the Sopranos by 2.5 and 1.5, and that puts Montclair on their back here.
Yeah, and Montclair lost on board 1. Bassem Amin by Bykhovsky was held to a draw, and then we saw a Wonder Liang, what looked like a dead equal endgame. And that's the problem. If you don't know your endgames and you're in time trouble, you can quickly go down in flames. And the problem really was that it looks like white was never able to play b4 and thus lost the games.
Well, if the Blizzard are going to have any chance to upset, if they're going to have any angle to upset the windmills, it's going to take a Nagel angle. And let's take a look at his game right now against the #1 Vietnamese player on the planet, Lequang Liem.
Yeah, and it looked like Nagel had a very good position just like 5 moves ago, and now all of a sudden his position doesn't look nearly as good. So I don't really know what happened in the last couple moves that lost him the advantage. So he has his pawn. I guess maybe it wasn't as good as I thought, but it just looked nice with having a pawn on e7. But that pawn is quickly coming down as we see the current position. There's no way for white to defend it. And if white doesn't defend it, well, then you're just simply going down a pawn. So how is there some sort of trick that you can at least go for that? I mean, king takes e7 seems like it's happening no matter what. Yeah, Danny, I'm at a loss here. I don't see how white is. You don't see the angle for Nagel? I do not. Definitely don't see the angle. I like the anagram.
It is
that you just.
How many anagrams can we make out of Nagel?
Probably a bunch. I can't think of another one at the moment, but
you could spell gelin. I mean, it's not correct, but it's like kind of like, hey man, are you gelin? I'm gelin. That kind of thing.
You are something today, sir.
All right. Well, the Blizzard have been led all season by the Tang train. So let's go on to that. board and see how the one and only Penguin GM is holding up so far, as he is under a bit of pressure. No, he's putting the pressure on Grandmaster Ashwin here.
Yeah, he's cruising right now because that queen can immediately go into g3. Okay, put it on g6, saying that if your knight is stuck to the c3 square, lest you get mated with queen to b1 check and mate. Now the knight can even go to d3 for black and threatening rook e1 check. So if you really want to, you could pick up the white queen for rook and knight. So knight d3, queen f1, rook e1 check, and white is forced to capture over there on... Oh, actually, after knight d3, maybe queen takes h4, and similarly take on e1. But if black here... Yeah, b5 was a good move, just threatening b4 to undermine that knight and threaten queen b1 check. So, yeah, this is very bad news for Ashwin Jairam, who's, like I said, was having a great season up to this point, performing over 2,700.
Okay. Well, sticking with the matchup between the Blizzard and the Windmills, the other game that we've talked about quickly was the game between Akshat Chandra and GM Tomas Banus. What's going on in this one?
Whoa, so rook takes c6 was played. Oh, and that's a nice move, because if rook takes c6, queen takes b5, exploiting a pin on the rook on c6 and attacking the rook on e2. So it looks like Akshat Chandra found a knockout blow here. And in fact, that means that black blundered. Yes, black did blunder horribly. If you go back to move 31 for black, instead of the move rook e2, which was a humongous mistake, any other rook move, e7 or e4, was much better. Mm-hmm. But by playing rook to e2, fell right into a potential move of the week candidate with rook takes c6. As I mentioned, exploiting the pin on the c6 rook after rook takes c6, queen takes b5, and attacking the rook on e2. And that's the worst nightmare for rooks, being attacked on diagonal at the same time.
Too many diagonals. Not enough time. Yeah, well, rook takes c6 looks like it might even just put the game away in the favor of the Blizzard there, because Banus has gone into the think tank, and he may not have a way out of this one. It's
Wait, so what's the score right now in this match? Because Chandra's winning.
It's 1-0 already in favor of the Blizzard.
Okay, Chandra's going to even...
That being because of a victory by who? Who earned that victory? It wasn't Nagel, and it wasn't Tang, and it wasn't Chandra. So that means it was Mauricio Flores over women's grandmaster Katerina Nemcova.
Yes.
So with Flores already getting a win for the Blizzard, Chandra's already Chandra's looking to help guarantee them a tie as this one in the first round of this one. So Blizzard off on the right foot again.
Yeah, no, Blizzard got off to a good start. I really thought that the Windmills would crush them, but so far, so good in Minnesota. And okay. Lequang Liem only has 4.5 seconds left against Sean Nagel. And Liem is up a pawn, but he does not have a lot of time left to convert this ending, although it should be pretty easy to convert as the Black King. Just infiltrate.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard to just march the king in, right? King e5, king d4, king d3. b2 is a problem. Liam Lee is going to take his time here because there's no real reason to rush it, given that he's already in complete control. But
yeah, here comes the king. All right, so that game is looking like it's about to be over. Just looks quite simple. Again, don't know how much time is left, but yeah. So what other games can we look at, Danny? I mean, I guess we haven't looked too closely at, well, I guess we've been doing a pretty good job of bouncing around the matches, huh? So, yeah, Lequang Liem is now 14 seconds left, and so he's doing, he should make easy work of Nagel at this point. Yeah. I don't know. I think that Nagel, he is strong. He had played very well at the beginning of the season, but it seems like things have gone south for him. And the only thing that might keep him in this game is if Lequang Liem's connection goes down, because that has happened several times today. We've seen players just flagged due to connection issues, including Bassem Amin for Montclair just several minutes ago. But the Blizzard, led by Andrew Tang, Mauricio Flores, are off to a quick start. The Sean Nagel will go down in this one. And we saw Akshat Chandra was winning. Oh, that was for the Blizzard. I keep forgetting Akshat's on the Blizzard because I think he lives in St. Louis. And thus, I keep just associating him with Webster, but he is not on Webster. He is on Minnesota. Speaking of St. Louis, we have several games of theirs still in progress. The game between Ivan Saric and Yaroslav Zherebukh, Danny, that's a really fascinating one. The game between Shiem Thavandaran and Vladimir Fedar Sayef is also quite interesting as well. So which one should we head on over to?
I would say pick your flavor, but I'll just take you to where I want you to be. We're going to head over to the Yaroslav Zherebukh and Saric game. Looks like a fun one.
Okay. So, I think that Shiem is, and this one is playing well against, what's his face? Again, I keep forgetting his name, Fedor Sayef. I don't know. For some reason, I can't just remember the name Fedor Sayef, but in Cruel Yarrow, that's Yaroslav Zherebukh with the black pieces. It's a very interesting battle because black is active with the bishop on g4 and the rook on the a file, and immediately the pawn a4 can be captured, but you have to consider the consequence of rook takes a4, queen takes b5, and alternatively, if you don't take on a4, and I don't know, I guess you can try to go after the d6 pawn, but there's no easy way to do so because you have two attacks on the d6 pawn. To get the knight attacking the pawn would require moving knight to e8, which is a backwards move that doesn't look particularly pleasant at the time, for the time being, but maybe is going to be possible at a certain moment. But the knight e5 in response to knight e8 doesn't look pleasant either. So I don't know. It's a lot to calculate here. And I think that's why Zherebukh is really using his time with bishop f5.
Yeah, he gains a tempo on the queen, but it's hard to tell whether the d6 pawn or a couple of passers by black on the queen side will be stronger.
Yeah. Okay. So bishop f5. So if you take on b5, the d6 pawn falls. If you go queen back to d2, then the black rook can take on a4 without losing the b pawn. So that looks like a favorable trade-off for Zherebukh. And Saric has been good. I mean, he's a very strong player, but this is a very important game for Zherebukh because he's just showing that, he's mighty. He just beat Eric Hansen, and if he can, not lose, and in particular if he can win, that's a tremendous win for the Archbishop. So now queen b5, rook d6. I'm starting to like black now.
Yeah, a nice transition. In fact, if rook takes d6, you could even take e7 if you wanted to. But I guess taking back on d6 would defend the c5 pawn as well, so white decides to avoid that.
So maybe bishop e6 now, just close those rooks off from each other.
And
the only reason I like black is I don't think that black is actually even better. I think it's about level, dynamic equality here. But I like that black's pieces are a little bit more together. This rook on e7, while it's nice to have a rook on the 7th rank, there might be some problems, especially after bishop e6. Then black might go c4. And I have a little bit more faith in the near future in the c pawn than I do in the a pawn. The a pawn down the line will be great because the bishop on g2 eyes that a queening square. But in the very near future, especially with white's back rank problems, I think white's king is the one that can get in trouble. For example, if that rook eventually finds its way down to d1. So I do like Zherebukh's position for the moment.
Well, he found your bishop e6, and now white has to decide what to do with the rook on e7. He swings it, but probably c4 comes pretty quickly here because the bishop on e6 also protected that square. Seems like a natural thing to do.
Yeah. c4 played. And now it becomes a question of can white go a5 and just keep pushing the pawn, or instead try to stop this c pawn in its tracks and move like bishop to f1. But a move like bishop to f1 then relieves some of the pressure on the a8 square. So no, I think this is a very dynamic position. Zherebukh's a little bit ahead on the clock for the time being, but definitely will be a fight till the end. And who else is playing in these matches? It looks like Varoujan Akopian is just completely winning against Lafang Hua. So that's nice for them. And wow, Shiem Thavandaran, we got to go back there, Danny, because all of a sudden Shiem won.
Which game is this? Against who?
Thavandaran versus Fedar Sayef, Big Fish 1995.
Got it. Going there.
And instead of making a draw, which Fedar Sayef could have done with queen d8 check to h4, he goes queen to g4. So clearly he's playing for a win, but White doesn't really have any moves, and he went h4. But now, can't Black even play a move like? No, actually, I was about to blunder. I think I was trying to go knight e4, and the idea behind knight e4 was to try to take the d pawn, and maybe that worked, but it was a little bit risky. Actually, maybe knight d4 did in fact was a possibility and overlooked. But I don't think Black has any chance of losing this game right now. Well, the position is just level with the queen ending.
Yeah, big day for Tavanderen so far, who already beat Akopian and, like you said, has no business losing this position.
Right. So that's a big win.
Huge for the Chessbrahs. Yeah, cool. Hansen already won to start this second round. So the other game.
The other game is between Yarrow and Sarich, so that would be a very important one. And they need Tavanderen to hold that one for the Chessbrahs do. And Sarich needs to get his act together against Zherebukh because he can't afford to drop it.
Well, the next round between the pawn grabbers, the pawn grabbers and the Sopranos is also underway. We'll see if Shaba can do a little better with the white pieces this time around.
Yeah, Shaba can't. He likes to have his fun playing chess, but for the sake of the pawn grabbers and their managers and their players, he's got to reel it in.
And for the heart rates of all those in Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yeah, we saw the heart rate during the Fischer random match between Magnus and Hikaru. If you got the heart rate of not only Shaba's teammates but his opponents as well, I'm sure it's through the roof.
Yeah, well, let's also take a look and focus a little bit on the matchup between Wonder Liang and Tom Bartel. This is an exciting one with kings on opposite sides of the board. What happened here? We know Wonder Liang is not afraid of sharp positions, as we saw last week, and of course he's pretty much been the most consistent young star to date so far in the Pro Chess League, for at least as far as really young American players go. But we'll see if he can pull off this victory here.
Yeah, I Wonder Liang, he beat Fabiano Caruana, whom he will face in the U.S. Championship in several months in the classical chess tournament. But a Wonder Liang against Tom Bartel. And, wow, this is another exciting battle. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised because when Wonder Liang is playing, there's always excitement. And we got to start saying the same for Tom Bartel. It's the second match. A second in a row. But here, they're playing on opposite sides of the board. Black is currently down a pawn, down a baby. But the d4 pawn is hanging. Black can just start with a move like rook f to b8, trying to pressurize the white queen side. And in these positions, the thing is that once you take on g6, right, Danny, that the h-file opens, Black can consider taking on the f-pawn, but the h-file often opens, and unless you have time to play bishop h6 and trade those bishops as well, then the Black king can start running away. And
the issue is that if White doesn't have more pieces coming, just getting rid of the g7 bishop won't be enough. And here comes Bartel on the b file with rook to b8. I don't know who's better here. Normally I'm always a little biased when I first see White has already established the pawn on h5, and I'm threatening to open up the h file and shake and bake on h7. But here I feel like Black is doing just fine in a race where he's normally a little bit behind.
Right. And so b3, well, what about queen takes d4 now? Because b3 is that's a loose-looking move. By playing the move b3, now you're inviting queen takes d4, right? And I guess, am I missing something there? I don't see anything. Queen takes d4, how is White going to respond to that?
No, I like it. I like Black. I'm not even sure I have to take on d4, because if I play rook f to c8, I feel like the more pieces I bring to the queen side, the better.
Yeah, and I guess b3 was forced, but something just bothers me with this open long diagonal after queen takes d4. So I don't see White getting an attack before Black does, and thus I'm really liking Tom Bartel's position. So there's still other games going on this round.
Okay. Let's go over to the one between Krul Yarrow and Saric right now, because that looks like the one closest to something crazy happening with both sides living off the increment here. White did get that pin on the diagonal. So the knight on f6, and everybody is just completely frozen to the pin here. But are they just going to play tickle until the cows come home?
Well, now black's better. Watch out, because that's an extra c pawn. So now...
Yeah, how did he give up the pin? He allowed bishop d5.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision there. He could have taken at some point probably on c4 and then taken on f6. But
the biggest problem for Yarrow is he doesn't seem to have the time to figure out how he wants to get that battery going. He'd like to get the queen and bishop.
I think a draw cannot be claimed yet. But this just looks good for black.
He did allow c3, but because he had a trick, the knight comes to e4, forking the queen and the pin knight. He's going to win a piece. He takes c3, queen takes f6. But is c2 winning?
No, yeah, c2 is winning for black. You can't stop the pawn and queen b2. Game over.
Oh, my gosh. Talk about a backfiring tactic.
No, but then he could have taken the pawn on c3 instead of the knight on f6.
Yeah.
And he would have just held the
Everybody,
draw.
Back to this position here. Saric sets a trap to take advantage of the pinned bishop, but it backfires when he takes the piece. Wait, but he couldn't... he could have taken the pawn on c3 with the knight. That was what you were saying. Yeah. If he takes with the knight, then he would have been... he would have been just fine. It's probably a draw with best play, but as it is in the live position, he's battling queen and bishop versus two queens, and now he's probably just resigning.
Yeah,
huge victory there for the bishops.
Yep, and that's over. So it's kind of one of those moves where you have to move backwards, and you don't see it because you're so in the process of thinking, I need to make an attack and to exploit this pin, that the simple move knight takes c3 was the one that held.
Well, Big Fish 1995 also took down his opponent, but there's one more game still going. I'm trying to find it. There must be one. No, this was it. This was the game that the bishops needed to take a 5-3 lead, despite Eric Hansen winning in record fashion. The bishops come back to win this round. Let's move on, or move back to one of the other top matchups this round. We have Liang Liang taking on Akshat Chandra. This one just getting started, but we got a lot of options here. We can go anywhere, Robert.
I want to give my guy Julio Becerra a quick shout out.
Okay.
His game should be over relatively soon, I feel like, but I just want to give him a little bit of love. He's playing with an extra queen versus a rook and bishop, and he's about to have a pass D pawn. And the reason, actually in particular, I want to give Becerra a shout out is because I picked him for my fantasy chess team.
Of course you do. And by the way, you should give yourself a shout out, because apparently you're one of the leaders right now, not just amongst grandmasters or people who do commentary, but you've got one of the best fantasy brackets in the entire league this week.
And you know why, Danny? You told me in the past weeks I've been thinking too much about it, so you took your advice to heart, and I didn't think really at all. I looked at the matchup, said, I like this player, I like Becerra, I like who did I take earlier? Georg Meyer I took, who upset MBL, and I did not take him.
As somebody who always bets with his gut, I can tell you that it's not a good idea, but good job. I want to remind everybody, if you're wondering what we're talking about, every week there is $10,000 on the line if you can achieve a perfect week of picks. Of course, there are other cash prizes for not quite as extreme of requirements there, but if you haven't been playing fantasy chess, we obviously encourage you to do so, especially with so much on the line each week. So, all right, well, Becerra's going to win this. He's going to take down the man from the Count of Monte Cristo, Delamorta, and your fantasy team is in good shape, as is the champion's chances this week.
Yeah, and by the way, I took Liang Liang, so we'll look at his game eventually, and I took Yarrow Zherebukh, and Yarrow Zherebukh has
look at you. You're
doing
rocking.
Work. I'm doing really well. I'm actually kind of proud of myself. So where should we actually
let's change the subject, all right? Don't go too far.
Yeah, let's go to how about your how about your guy? It was very instructive. Your guy Nicholas Rosenthal with the black pieces.
Salsa.
We saw him defeat a grandmaster in the first game, and now he's black against international master Mario Villanueva. And it's a very interesting rook endgame where currently white is up a pawn, but in a quick second, white is going to lose that pawn. And in fact, the extra pawn that white has is in fact a doubled pawn. So, I'm really liking Rosenthal's position here.
He already won his. If you're just joining us, everybody, the champions got a huge win by their board 4, that being Rosenthal, over Obregon, one of the top boards from the Krakens in the first round, where Obregon resigned in a position that apparently Rosenthal didn't even see what the win was. So who knows whether that's true or not. But if Rosenthal can hold this one, he will have really, and this is, of course, the 1 week where I don't think I picked him for my fantasy team. He left me disappointed so many weeks in a row that I went away from the salsa train. Maybe I should have stayed there.
Wait, so his pawn looks like it's queening first, and it's going very quickly.
Yeah.
But it looks like that black pawn is queening first. So rook f6, b3, h6. You can do a quick pawn count. Queen at the same time. But since black queens first, it looks like there can be huge problems for the white king.
Yeah, he's going to mate him, likely, something like queen g1 check. And if you go to f4,
actually,
you win the d4.
You don't even let white get a queen, probably, because after b2, h7, you just go rook c8.
Oh, good point. You could just play rook c8. Although I think you might be mating white anyway, but yeah, good point. And if that's the route that white is on, then Rosenthal is going to get his second victory in a row.
Yep, he's going to be up a full rook at the end of this variation here. So Nicholas Rosenthal.
Rosenthal coming up big, of course. The 1 week I don't pick him on my fantasy team, although I'll be honest, I don't remember what I did yesterday, so he could be on my fantasy team. Not sure yet. We'll just say that everybody should be encouraged to play fantasy, just like you and I are encouraged to follow the most exciting games. There are some getting under time pressure here. Becerra, your boy, did take home his game. What about Dr. Basim Amin versus Atulia Shetty?
Mom Spaghetti. Let me find that game so I can. Dr. Basim.
Hey, don't ever eat where you Shetty.
Whoa, Atulia. Oh, you're the worst. It looks like he's cruising right now.
Hey, Robert, don't play chess where you Shetty.
Yes, I got you, man.
Should I continue?
Danny, queen f3 check, king g1, and then bishop d4 looks lights out. Just making use of the fact that all of white's pieces are pinned. And so that looks like it's just winning on the spot.
Well, Basim is about to invite the Shetty, and the Shetty is about to hit the F-file. So,
yep, queen f3, king g1.
We got to move on from here. I'm trapped in a
Yeah, I'm trying to ignore you as hard as I can, but it's really difficult. By the way, how could you not play? Remember,
I told you the Shetty was hitting the F-file. There it goes. It's over.
Yep, king g1, bishop d4.
Dr. Basim is proving to not be the best free agent acquisition for the Sopranos at this point.
Yeah, both he and Fedar Sayef have been very disappointing thus far for their respective.
And it's one of the as the Pro Chess League is in its infant stages in a way, only in our second year. I think it's an interesting lesson in regards to contracting free agents that are significantly out of your time zone, because it doesn't have the same. You're not relying on a normal 2,700 rating from Dr. Basim if he's playing his games north of 11 p.m. local time, right? Very difficult.
Yep. And if he is indeed in Egypt, he's playing extremely late into the evening. And Fedar Sayef plays from Russia. It's 2:06 in the morning in Egypt right now, so not great. But let's go over to the A Wonder Liang game against Tom Bartel.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would.
Okay, then we're doing it.
And the reason why I would like it is because now all of a sudden A Wonder's attack is sort of looking like it's about to crash through at least. And the move bishop h6 is inviting itself.
Yeah, and the reason why it works so well here, everybody, is, well, okay, black can still take momentarily because it is check, but one of the problems is that there's immediate threats of queen h8 in a scenario like this. So, okay, he's able to take with check, so he doesn't get mated initially, but now the king is on the run.
And so you put queen on g7 and follow up with a rook h8 check idea?
Yeah, that looks good. Queen g7, rook h8, followed by the f7 pawn falling at some point is good for white.
Yeah, it looks tough. But at the same time, it's not so easy for white either. Yes, the white king is certainly safer with the 3 pawns over there. But, it's if you delay a little bit, if you're not quick for the white attack, it seems like the black can end up doubling on the c file and applying pressure on that side of the board.
No, I agree. This isn't just a lights out game at this point. I think queen g7 makes a lot of sense anyway, even if you're not ending the game on rook h8. The queen on g7 guards c3. She hits f7. Kind of a nice multi-purpose move. But okay, what's stopping you if you're Bartel from playing a move like king to d8? What if I try to run? You can't take f7 right away, can you? Because if rook takes c3, or maybe you can, because there's other threats for white.
Well, I don't want to give up the f7 pawn. I'm worried about that, but I guess so. King d8 and knight c6 are the two main considerations here, because knight c6 frees up the e7 square, and actually protects the f8 square with your queen. So knight c6 looks great now that I think about it.
Knight c5 clearing the d7 square, and maybe outside threats of moves like knight takes b3 at some point, Robert, because of perpetuals, right? If let's just say a random move is made by white, there's weird ideas sometimes like queen a3 check and knight takes b3, where black can sacrifice the house on b3 and try to create some sort of perpetual. Not forced yet, but something white would have to keep his eye on here.
So I totally agree with you, and that's why I think that white perhaps should play the move rook d4 as a starting point. The idea being that your king can now go to d1, which is, with the idea, as you said, with queen a3 check, knight takes b3 stuff in the air, putting your king on d1 seems like a safer option. So rook d4 comes to mind, and that rook can also swing to f4 and pressure the f7 square. So, but I don't know, rook d4, queen a3 check, it's very unclear. This is an extremely double-edged position, and rook f3, so I think black has to go f5. I mean, but then maybe rook back to h3, making use of the fact that you've sort of opened up your king a little bit more. Though f5, it's very difficult for white to really crash through. So I'm very interested in how this game will unfold.
Okay, well, let's keep our eye on it. There's still some time left, so we can come back. Other games, the National Master... I'm sorry, no, not National Master. We have Eric Hansen taking on Fedar Sayef. Almost top board battles there for the Chessbrahs versus the Bishops. So this will be a big one in this round. We've also got Sarich taking on Akopian, another big matchup for the Bishops versus the Brahs. The Pawn Grabbers in a very positional battle here by Shaba. Not the most common thing we see from Mr. Ding Dong, Shaba Daba Ding Dong.
You said Shaba positional battle, and I thought you had the wrong. You were like seeing something. You're hallucinating, essentially.
Right. No, exactly. It's.
But you're right.
He's looking to grind his way to a victory here, taking advantage of this isolated c5 pawn.
And I'm wondering if you can try to go for it right away with a move like rook e to c1. He said he goes queen a5, which, okay, it's a perfectly reasonable move. If I'm black, I want my knight to get to d4. So that knight on e5 belongs in d4, which means I kind of want to move my rook, but I can also... Whoa, was not expecting that move. So what if just pawn takes e3?
That's a nice move. I like that move. It's a shot in the dark.
Wow.
From a practical perspective, it's exactly the kind of thing to put white on his toes. Plus, from black doesn't want to focus all his efforts on defending a weakness, right? You want counterplay. e3, the point everybody is if bishop takes AA, black's going to take on f2 with check, intermezzo. And taking e3, I mean, even a move like knight g4 immediately sacrificing the rook with queen e3 check, this could get nasty real quick for white.
Yeah, actually, after a knight g4, you might have to make a move like rook c3, because otherwise the queen e3 check is a devastating threat. So, yeah, this is, in Danny Rensch terms, nasty.
That's Honey Badger terms, by the way. I wore a Honey Badger shirt to work out this morning, just so you know. Thanks for asking. How'd your WOD go, Dan? Oh, it went great. Thanks.
You do CrossFit? Is that something you do? Where's
Hey, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I don't know if anybody knows that you do CrossFit.
They probably don't. All right. Well, what I don't know is whether anybody appreciates just how awesome Mr. Sean Nagel is. So let's move on to that game.
Where is Greenhaven?
Greenhaven is taking on Grandmaster Tamaz Banuz, and in a fickle little, I don't know.
Tickle? Whoa, okay. Looking kind of weird, because like white has no pieces over there on the king side. And if you are...
That's what he wants you to think.
If you are Nagel...
If you're Nagel, you're worried about this c6 pawn. I'll tell you that. It's on an open file. And if white can just do a little reorganizing here, something like queen a6 keeps its eye on e2, Robert. Knight a4 comes in, opening the c file. Positionally, White's better. So why is black? What is black's plan here?
So I think G5, F5, F4 is one idea I'd keep in mind.
Wow, G5, F5, F4.
Well, I'm worried about what you were just talking about. That my pawn at C6 is very weak, and I need some sort of counterplay. So G5 maybe to start with. It gives my queen another square to go to G6. Then I can go F5. And so I just like the fact that I at least gain a little bit of counterplay that I don't have at the moment. So the knight on C3 is tied down to the pawn E2, which is important to keep in mind. So maybe a calm move like rook F to E8 is just smarter and better than G5. But I'm a fan of going a little bit crazy. Though I don't know if Nagel is on the same wavelength as I am at the moment.
You've been known to get your freak on from time to time on the king side.
It's Valentine's Day. It's the best day for fantasy chess of the year.
Right.
And so, just trying to make good.
Make
I believe
good.
50 Shades of Grey movie came out today. So,
okay, subject changed. What we do have here is an interesting one going on between I wonder Liang. We've seen it a few times already. Looks like Liang did manage to parry whatever. Right as I say that, I say he managed to parry whatever counterplay Bartel was coming up with. But his rook takes C2. It's just bluff. He's blocking on C3. It's nothing after Queen A2, Queen B2, and then Rook C3. I wonder if Bartel just missed that. He's about to resign.
Probably forgot the Rook just
resigns in T minus 3, 2, 1. Prediction fail. But after Rook to C3, it's over. I don't know that it's totally fair given that Black was losing, but I'll go ahead and spam our Twitch chat with some blunders. Rook takes C2 did nada. Okay, well, big win for the pawn grabbers there. Is Shaba doing what he's supposed to do against Raven Stewart as we predicted he was going to? Looks like he's having to deal with these weird tactics that happen from the nice E3 pawn sacrifice.
Shaba Daba. Whoa.
This is getting really weird. Really great counterplay by Raven Stewart, even if it doesn't work, I think.
Yeah, and I think the issue for Black, funnily enough, is that this rook on E4 at the moment is bad for you because you want that rook gone so you can take on E3 with the queen. That said, taking on E3 with the rook might just hang that bishop over there on A8. And what are the consequences of that? So if rook takes E3, bishop takes A8, rook takes E2. There's certainly some pressure there, but I don't think that Black is in time. And now queen takes A7 should be played. Mm-hmm. Because now you pin your own bishop. The white queen is attacking C5 now, which is important, of course. And after knight takes E3, what? Wait. He could have taken on E4. He missed an opportunity there. Bishop takes E4. Yeah, queen takes E4. Queen B8 check to E5 with check. Forces a queen trade. So
yeah, that's a hard one to see under time pressure, but a huge one for white. If you can eliminate the queens, this extra exchange is just easy money. So now he's going to have to defend the position since Shaba missed his opportunity to get the queens off the board. Is Black?
He can do it next. Right? Just go rook F1 or something. And then
any rook move, I guess, because E2 isn't capturable. White won't even take back on E2. Everybody, White will just take on B7. So now I think he'll see this opportunity to take on E4. I bet he. I was about to pull the old full Shaba once, shame on you. Full Shaba twice, shame on Shaba. But apparently Shaba was full twice.
Well, I was gonna say at some point you can go knight takes E2 check here, and rook takes E2. What's that?
Queen takes D4.
Queen takes D4 is a free piece.
Yeah. Not exactly the best way to keep the counterplay going there from Black.
And Danny, it looks like Anatoly Bukhovsky has 7 seconds left against Mika Bratton for the pawn grabbers and staying within this match against the Montclair Sopranos. And Bukhovsky's a grandmaster, has the white pieces. Mika Bratton was the fortunate soul who got the win on time against Bassem Amin when Amin's connection seemed to go out. And right now it's a complicated battle.
I'm looking for the game right now. There it is. Bukhovsky riding on the increment, as you said.
And so what's going on here? Black has to be better with the two bishops, and especially that bishop on D4.
Well, Andy's up on time, so this is a real chance for the pawn grabbers to increase their lead in this match. Already up 4.5, 1.5. If Bukhovsky falls, the pawn grabbers' magical season gets even more fairy dust, if that's a thing.
Queen F4 is a nice move.
Yeah, super nice move.
Yeah, that was a good decision there.
Mature chess. Now he has the threat of bishop e5, followed by both queen h2 and rook d2. Yeah, he finds it. Very nice right now by
Oh, what a move!
Rook takes e6.
Yes,
out of nowhere, and now knight c4 guards both d2 and d5, and our excitement was enough for Smarter Chess to gift a sub to Rice.
Bishop f1. White's winning here. That is a huge turnaround. I'm sorry to
wow. No, you're right. I was giving a shout out to the sub, but what a nice find with rook takes e6 under time pressure for Bykovsky.
Oh, look at that move. Queen g4, saying, let's trade queens. My outside pass pawn on b5 is enough to play for victory.
Well, he'll play
now queen f5, queen e4, same idea.
Going heading into g6. White's going to bring this one home now.
And go b6. Okay, bishop e2 first. Wait, yeah,
queen c6 is fine. Now. Yeah, he still has b6, and black still doesn't have anywhere to go.
Danny, with 5 seconds and less for like the last zillion moves, Bykovsky's played an amazing game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, this is a high class for a classical game, but he's done this all with no time on the clock. And now he's just, okay, this is great. And I've played Bykovsky in a number of blitz events, and he's super fast. He's quite strong.
Yep.
He's better at speed chess than he is at classical, I'd say.
Yep.
And he's making work of his low-rated opponent.
No, I agree. One of those players who almost plays better when he has to rely on his intuition and doesn't outthink himself. So, Bykovsky coming up with a huge win here, assuming he doesn't find a way to back his way into a drawn obstacle. Bishop ending, no, he wins by resignation. Kind of a strange resignation there from Bertain, given that he had maybe created. I guess it's just over. Yeah, 2 passed pawns are good enough. So, okay, well, that's a win that saves the Sopranos' chances in this match, if I may be so bold to say so. I mean, they were about to go down 5.5, 1.5, with a GM losing to somebody he shouldn't have. Okay, the next round between the Krakens, I almost said. Krakens. I'm wearing some Krakens right now. Becerra and Obregon, they're throwing down. GM on GM crime here.
Uh-oh. Let's see. And it's also just, wow, lots of pawns in the center, lots of knights in the e-file.
Yeah. And
still we're in a very thematic structure that comes directly from this the Keras variation in the Spanish. Yeah, it's very hard to... It's a very high-level position, honestly. It's a lot of complications where neither side really wants to take the knight in the center, because in doing so, you help the opponent pawn structure. For example, taking on e4 would be very bad from White's point of view, because f takes e4, or even d takes e4, honestly. But that promotes that pawn structure, helps it improve for black. So for black's move here, you can... well, what do you want to do here? That's the real question. I understand what the structure is happening, but I don't know the right move to play. Because White is trying to go knight d3 and then bishop f4, things like that, to further figure out what to do with the bishop on c1, but also further occupy this e5 square. And if that bishop, if you just imagine a position where those dark square bishops are removed, White has complete dominance over the e5 square. Yep,
and the light squares are potentially very weak here for black. Something to always keep your eye on, even when there's a lot of minor piece action, everybody, is who has the biggest potential, the potential weaknesses, whether those be pawns or squares, because as the tactics start to open up here, black has to be very careful of his the f pawn he's pushed, and what might happen here if the diagonals start to open up. I guess knight d3 is fine here anyway, but are you prepared to meet b takes c3 with a move like b3 maybe? Kick the knight out, kind of a temporary positional pawn sack.
Yeah.
Knight d3, bc3, b3, something like this might help White get the knight out, and then kind of continue your positional plan of this bishop not being a good piece behind the pawn structure, and maybe black's light squares eventually becoming a problem. So this is going to be an interesting one as I look at where it's headed. So what else do we have going on here between the champions and the Krakens, as I've now said a few times?
We have a bunch of other games, but there are other games that are closer to the finish line.
Yeah, so I was going to say Mauricio Flores' game against Grandmaster Ashwin is about to be a big loss for the Blizzard. Ashwin looks like he's about to take this one home.
Yeah, and Ashwin lost the first game of this match, but he has been doing very well in the season, and so he's going to even things out with what should be a pretty straightforward victory now that the king is forced back, and now he takes on f6. So the nice knight f5 check, forcing the king away from the e4 pawn. Now black is up a pawn with the dominating passer on e4. So this one should be quite simple for Ashwin to win. And that leaves, let's go to other games within this match. Maybe some of the other ones are a little bit
Yeah,
more,
we haven't given the Blizzard versus the Windmills much love. The Blizzard did get 3 victories in the first round with only Sean Nagel falling. He was playing the top seed there. But okay, we've got this time Penguin GM. That, of course, being Andrew Tang, is taking on Katerina Nemcova. Looks like Tang is in the driver's seat here. With much more active pieces, and looks like an a6 pawn that's about to fall for black.
Yeah, no, Tang is doing very well here. And if that a6 pawn falls, the only issue I guess I could see happening for white is, like, let's say you take on d4 and take on a6. There may eventually be this issue where if black wins the b pawn and gives up the d pawn, you're left with this 4-on-3 on the king side that may not be enough to convert into a victory. So I think that's what Katerina's best chance is. Kachka, like I said, I coached her on the U.S. Women's Olympiad team. She definitely knows, and she's good at deciding when to kind of just give up a pawn and give herself the best chance to hold. So,
shout out to our last subscription, Smarter Chess, gifting Penguin GM a sub here to the chess channel. Really appreciate the love there. What else do we have going on in this matchup between the Blizzard and the Windmills?
Liang versus Akshat Chandra. I think we have to go over there. It's kind of the big matchup of the round with Lakwang Liang, 2740 plus player, and Akshat Chandra, well known here on chess.com, plays on every single title Tuesday. And here it's very complicated because the material is level, but black has the 2 bishops. And I don't like black's time management. And this pawn on g5 as well can be a little bit of a target. I think that objectively speaking, Danny, black should be doing pretty well here, though knight b5 is very tempting, trying to go into the d6 square. So
no, objectively, black should be doing fine with the bishop pair, as you said, but something about the position just feels really almost loose is the word, right? With the king on g8, you've already got this white pawn on h5. What's going to happen over here on the light squares? Although now, I guess if you can just simplify everything on c3 and then gobble back his c5 pawn, black should be doing fine. Time slightly favoring Liang right now with about double black's time, but both sides will be under a minute momentarily.
Right, and I think that the pawn on g5 is like, it's really the lone black weakness, right? It's like having this to do with that. Not to mention, let's imagine all the pieces except for pawns were traded.
Yep.
Then white has the advantage because you have an outside pass pawn.
Yeah, this h5 pawn.
And here black may have to, play bishop e4 as was just done. And the opposite colored bishop dynamic should be good for black.
Yeah, well, it's also a safe and practical decision there, everybody. Good lesson when you only have 40 seconds here. Get the complicated parts of this position off the board. Now black can focus in on these weak pawns, c3 and a3. And black, Chandra really shouldn't lose this game here as black.
Well, he's going to have to just be careful. Like, for example, move like rook e5, then queen g4. You still have to defend this pawn on g5. Right. And that's the only annoyance in the position. He does go rook e5. The pawn a3 is clearly under attack, but you can defend it by attacking the pawn on g5. So it's an indirect defense of the pawn. So I would go queen g4 here and try to maximize the pressure. Okay, queen f3 is similar idea. The pawn a3 is defended. I did like queen g4 a little bit more.
I think black quickly needs to just put pieces on squares that are active and easy to control. I like the idea of bringing the rook to d2, especially if we can get a bishop to d4 and gang up on the f2 pawn. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where your pieces are undefended and on loose squares, especially when you don't have a lot of time, everybody. So part of the decisions that are made at this point in the game are almost practical, just from the perspective that you don't want to put yourself in a position to blunder and miss a tactic.
Yeah, and the back rank, there's no real problems for black because the bishop can always retreat to f8, and the king will eventually have the h7 score as well. So a4 is just a move. You're in time trouble. Let me try to beat you. And look at Akshat Chandra's clock down to 8 seconds. And so queen d8 is a move to play rook d2 and put a piece on d4, probably the queen on d4. But maybe queen f6 would have been a little bit brighter in that sense of just trying to trade the queens off right away. So black can reroute that bishop to f8 to c5, and that looks quite tempting as well. Okay, so white should king g2. So white's playing for a win. Lakwang Liang is playing for a win, hoping the rook moves off the d file so the rook can come to d1. Akshat Chandra has no interest. And if rook d1 now, it was played and just a trade of rooks. Bishop c2 now. Okay, actually, white's making some progress. Watch out for the h7 square. Because if the queen gets to h7 and you can make the move h6. Queen a8 check now. Bishop f8, and then maybe h6. Okay, h6. No, this is looking good for white. Watch out. And no time for black. Black's queen d6 maybe with 0.9 seconds left. And now move like g4. Just put all your pieces in the light squares. I would have gone g4 first there to stop f5. But now queen to b7. Or queen to a8. And king h7. So now g4. You got to play it. You have to play g4. Okay, he played it. Wow, this is getting... The action is heating up here. Black's king is not very happy. But black is doing very well to hold for the time being. And bishop c5. Not worried about these checks.
You're doing so great, buddy. I'm just listening to the sweet sounds of your voice.
Well, now it's just making a draw. Trade on g6, draw first. So I think that actually Le Quang Lim had great winning chances at a certain point there. He didn't go g4 when he needed to, and by the time he did, Akshat Chandra was able to liquidate. So
I guess sort of a victory there for the Blizzard, right? I mean, I felt like Chandra was doing well, but just getting any kind of scalp or shaving any points against the top-rated player from the opposing team, never a bad thing for your team, right? So yeah, that's a... What about... Oh, look at this. We have a time scramble ensuing between Andrew Tang and Katerina Nemcova. Although, will she have time? Will she have time for those pawns to... She has no time on the clock, I'll tell you that. She's literally living off the increment there.
But the position is a draw.
Should be, right?
King, yep, the king, black king is too far down the board.
Yep.
And you push the king and g-pawn. Don't care about the
And a good lesson
h-pawn.
for everybody, the evaluation here of why black is drawing so easily is precisely because of the king positions. This white king would rather be anywhere than directly blocked off via opposition. Although, okay, if she isn't careful, is she just going to repeat here? Oh, that's a bad move. She's allowing king e6. I think that... Okay, they're just going to repeat and take a draw. But in this, to analyze this position real quick, Robert, I think that after rook h8, it made more sense for black to just play g3 and go forward. On king to g5, did white have king e6?
Well, king e6, you can still go king f4 and hold the draw, but you are...
Well, you're giving rook takes h5. Okay, so that's probably your best draw. But yeah, I mean, the point, everybody, is after king e6, if black plays g3, king e5, and now you have no threat of g2, and suddenly white's king is actually in exactly the kind of position that wins. In fact, you can already see the engine announcing a mate in 16 if this position was to occur on the board. So I think Nemcova was really risking it with the move king g5, and Tang missed an opportunity with king e6.
And by the way, Sean Nagel went down again to Tomas Banush. And so not a good day for Nagel.
Was the angle I was riding, but that horse is stumbling toward the middle of this season after a really great start there. Okay, the Blizzard have now really let the windmills back in this match, with Tang dropping a draw to Nemcova and Nagel going down. Webster has brought this thing back to a full tie, 4-4 heading into round 3. What about the Bras? What do we got? We got the Bras and the Bishops. Where are we at with that?
The Bras and the Bishops. Let's see. We got Eric Hansen playing against Fedar Sayef. And with the white pieces, it looks like Eric Hansen is up in exchange, a full exchange. There is certainly some compensation on the king side with his knight on g5, but I think that b4 now for Eric Hansen wins the game on the spot because...
Yeah, I was going to say b4 is that's the kind of undermining I like.
Yeah, the attack looks fake, right? The idea with knight h3 check is not something that's actually going to pan out.
Are you claiming fake news on the attack?
Yeah, I am. Fake news.
Fake
hashtag.
News. Knight takes h3 is nothing. You heard it here first.
Yep. So that means Eric Hansen, Fedor Sayev they got to stop playing him at this point and find a different sub. You know what's weird to me, Danny? And this is something that non-chess fans who don't follow the game super closely wouldn't know. Alexander Ipatov plays for St. Louis University.
Yep.
Somehow he is not on this Archbishops team. I would kick Fedor Sayev out because he's up at like 3 in the morning playing terribly. Put Ipatov in and say, well, I'm going to replace my 2730 with the local 2660 player and see how that works out. So I don't know why Ipatov's not on the team. This is me calling for him. This is I could be his agent and say, please sign Alex Ipatov to your team. But I don't know what's going on in St. Louis.
I agree. Hansen did find b4, and he needs a victory. A lot of people tuning into the Chessbrahs channel shout out to everybody who's tuning in here on Twitch TV/chess and Chess TV. JCS86 says that he or she is also just listening to the sweet sounds of your voice, Bobby. So people digging. You know, we dig it when you just go in that zone where you're dropping educational dimes like they're going out of style. So, well,
education tries, sort of my strong suit in a way. So I try to deliver what I can. There's a question actually.
Let's stay with this match. Cruel Yarrow is also in a huge game right now.
Whoa, and Lafrancois, I hate his knight on b8, his backward pawn on d7. Yeah, this does not look very good.
Lafrancois has not been in the best shape today for the Bras. In fairness, he's played some tough competition, but
exactly. To be fair to him, he's played 3 GM. It's like, not exactly the easiest slate of opponents, but still, this position is really bad.
Yeah.
Just go with C3 or A3 or whatever, and then Black has no active moves.
D7 is more than a backward pawn here. It's I don't know.
Although actually, maybe Black can play for Bishop C5 and try to trade the darks for bishops, and then hope to hold because, well, then you give the rook to D6. Nah, that doesn't look good either.
Yeah, eventually the rook will wiggle its way in.
Well, we have to, sorry to cut out this game, we have to go to Forrest Chen versus Xiam Thavander because that game is really hectic. And I don't know what to say because I thought for a second that White's position might have been pretty good, but now I'm not so sure anymore.
Did you jinx Forrest again?
No, I don't think. I just don't. Maybe the position wasn't as good as I was looking at to begin with. But there's a bishop on f5. There's some pressure over there on the board. Maybe bishop takes f4 now for Forrest Chen. The idea is that if bishop takes f4, queen takes g4, bishop takes e5 is check.
Yeah, that's an intermezzo, take, shake and bake.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good chance for Forrest Chen to bounce back. One of the things about playing Forrest Chen in the lineup for the bishops is even if he's had some difficult weeks on board 4, and it's hard when you're playing up pretty much every round. He's allowed St. Louis to field some really strong lineups, pretty consistently 3 GM lineups. Right here, you see Fedar Sayef, Zherebukh, and Akopian. So, just to kind of tell the fans there, one of the biggest advantages of having a board 4 that you deem to be slightly underrated is your ability to take advantage of a 3 GM opportunity on the top 3 boards. But it doesn't mean you want them to lose.
And the problem is when the GMs aren't holding up their end of the bargain, which Fedar Sayef has not done this season.
Right.
And all right, so Akopian has 3 seconds left. If this is 4.5 seconds left, and he's down a piece. His position looked very good earlier, and now he's down a piece against Ivan Saric. So speaking of, whoa, he blundered his queen.
I missed it. I couldn't get there in time. What happened? Instant replay.
Oh, go to move 37 Black, went king e4.
White went queen takes oh my gosh, and it ended. He played king e4, and after queen takes a4, just loses the queen. Everybody.
Man.
Saric has blown what was an easy win for the Chessbrahs and a huge game in their match, everybody. This position, he's up a knight with nothing but good things coming his way. Akopian down to 4 seconds, and you heard it in Robert's voice even before I had the board on the screen. Wow, queen takes a4. Robert, thanks for giving us the emotion there. I like to know that you're not just cold-hearted. So,
I mean, I was in shock when I saw that happen.
That was a heartbreaker. Those are the kind of things that just define a season sometimes. And right now, the Chessbrahs have been a little snake-bitten, if I'm totally honest, right? I mean, we saw Hansen lose a game 2 weeks ago when he played, right? Not exactly the same way, but a rook move blunder in one move. And right now, the Chessbrahs, they need to check themselves before they wreck themselves, pun intended. I mean, it's a heartbreaking loss right there for the Chessbrahs.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all, and that's both of these teams have been underperforming because I think they're both on the outside looking in. Maybe, just maybe, the Archbishops are somehow still in the playoff hunt.
Well, if Saric loses that one, right now Hansen is on his way to redeeming himself, about to take down the #1 board for the St. Louis Archbishops. He's completely winning, but only 20 seconds. So as long as he finds a way to play a couple accurate moves here, shouldn't be a problem for him to win up a rook, even if he is playing a 2700 from Russia.
Yeah, I mean, Russian technique is usually withheld.
Russian technique is better when they're up a rook.
Yes, but normally for equal positions, not down a fork, and a resignation did occur.
Yeah, well, that's a big. I mean, honestly, that saves the Bras' chances in this match. Again, we've said single games can make a huge difference, and with it makes you super heartbroken for the Bras, because if Sarge does what he's supposed to do, this is a tied match right now instead of them being down 2 games. So
and we got to go over to Yarrow versus Lafrancois, because Yarrow only has 5 seconds left, and he's sure it still is better. Well, actually, his advantage is really kind of dissipated, because right now it looks like his rook is sort of trapped over there.
Yeah, he might just have to settle on a draw. Okay, no, he doesn't want to.
No, but I mean, I think that actually black is the one who can end up better in these kind of endings. You look at the H-pawn, the pawn H4, right? That's on a dark square. If somehow this knight can magically appear on F5, which it can through knight C6, king move 97,
lots of maneuvers. It's not magic, Robert. It's strategy.
That's true. But
hashtag you're welcome.
Okay, well, wait a second.
Look, he just fixed his structure. That's how white blows games like this. Yarrow might be no. Yeah, he gets the king into C5 and C4. Look at that technique. Bishop D1.
No, but now knight C8 to E7. No, what are you going there for? I guess you're only C3. But I don't like that. He missed his chance.
Yeah, but he comes into E2 and F4, H4. Everybody's going to fall. White better get a queen, or he's gonna have real problems.
G5. Go G5. Go G5. There it is.
G5. Look at that move, everybody. Forces the H pawn, and the bishop is blocked on the diagonal. Can't get back.
But the A pawn's also going.
He's got to play king B8. No, but then he gets mated. Both sides queen, but black gets the first check.
And so queen, it's probably got to be a draw at this point. The queen on 8 is protected, which is nice. And you don't really want to take
everybody. There's no skewer tricks because the queen is protected. So the king is sort of free to roam, as long as you don't touch down on a square that lets this knight get in with check.
So queen E3 check here. Okay, or queen D1.
Whoa, queen D5 check. Trades queens and only black can win. That's a bad move.
White's up a pawn, so you have to really be certain that you're doing fine. But yeah, I don't think that black is in too much trouble there. But maybe queen D4.
Okay, he goes queen D4 first. Temporarily blocking the check on A7, but white has checks on the diagonals. Moves like queen B5, and DD finds it.
But the good news for black is now if the queens get traded, knight H3 happens, and we're trading more pawns.
Yeah, and you quickly lose more pawns. Plus, as long as these pawns are on dark squares, makes it impossible for the bishop to defend.
Okay, now you just
trade queens, knight H3, game draw.
Whoa, why king E7? Was knight H3 was not good enough?
Not sure. Okay, what? He's just going to sit. This should also be good enough for a draw. I mean, to be quite honest, right? I mean, but
but he's like asking for trouble.
He is asking for trouble. He just needs to force the trade of pawns. Knight H3 is. He doesn't seem to understand that. Yeah, he's going to get that knight in trouble.
Okay, that knight's going back to G7, and I guess he's hoping that he can just go knight E8,
knight E8, knight G7, and there's nothing but tickle.
But the king will go to H5.
You can even just move the king here.
The knight's trapped on G7.
My gosh. Did black really just find a way to get that knight completely dominated by the bishop?
Yes.
That was unbelievable. King F6 and white wins.
Lafrancois is having a tough day off.
That is another heartbreaking loss for the Chessbrahs that we're all bearing witness to right now.
Look at this. A great decision. You need to take the pawn.
He didn't even need to. He goes for Zugzwang, everybody, and black has to move the knight to a trade, and he's just losing.
By the way,
from an instructive point of view, Robert, that was about as dominant as you ever see a bishop over a knight, and a super good lesson for everybody at home. Black needed to be more aggressive. Those are the things you have to be worried about when a knight is playing against a bishop, where you run out of squares. And the Chessbrahs are they're a game away from the match being over already.
Well, there's a big problem that happened was that Forrest Chen did beat Shyam Thevandaran. So Forrest Chen converted an advantage for a change, and he did in fact beat his much higher-rated opponent.
Wow. Well, there you go. Big wins all around. We've got big games starting here in the Blizzard matchup versus the Windmills. Laquang Liang taking on Andrew Tang. Certainly something we're going to keep our eye on. Are there other games that are closer to time pressure that we should go to, though? That's the question.
I guess some of these Miami games are in time pressure. We could go to Julio Becerra with the
Indeed.
black pieces against Andres Carlos Obregon. And in fact, Becerra is quote unquote down in exchange, but what he is really up is these passed pawns in his position with the black pieces. So he's got amazing winning chances here. In fact, he probably should be winning somehow. The main issue is that playing the move G3 is difficult for black in the current situation because the H3 pawn is currently a little bit vulnerable. So you can try to do something like rook F3, follow that up with knight G5, and then play for G3 check. So I think you should definitely start with rook F3, but then maybe rook C8, getting behind the pawns is something that white wants to try. So an interesting position here. No, I do love black's position. I think great winning chances. And maybe the idea is to eventually go knight F6, king G5, knight H5, king H4, and just hide your king on H4 and try to finally push the pawn. So I really like black's position.
Yeah, and certainly the only chance white has is that Becerra doesn't have a lot of time. But I agree, this is one that black really is playing for 2 results, even if the rooks are temporarily kind of keeping the rook and knight in check.
Yep. And so that one, and by the way, Miami's up 7-3 right now, it looks like. So
yeah, no, this is I mean, in theory they could clinch the match this round. Where's the other game that's still in progress for Miami?
It's Renier Gonzalez. And more importantly than them clinching the match is Julio Becerra continuing to win for my fantasy chess team, just for the record.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I feel like that was not an easy pick because, he's not one of the higher rated players that could have been chosen. So I just have faith in Julio.
This Gonzalez game is super interesting against the Count of Monte Cristo. Normally we love the minors, of course, versus the rook, but here with white's king under fire and the F3 pawn hanging, it's hard to be white here.
Well, knight C, can you get away with knight C4? I guess maybe then queen takes F3 and
why can't I take with the rook? Because I'm threatening rook H3 check.
Oh, yeah, I was about to let you do that because I wasn't thinking clearly. So that looks good for you. So I don't
king
want to
G2, but here comes H3. Maybe a transfer to the G file with tempo now that the king is open. But I think, I was going to say H3 just overwhelms the king and F3 is going to fall. Although one nice thing is that took away the H3 check discovery.
Exactly. So now rook takes F3. White can then either move the bishop or go knight C4.
Right.
And actually, black's task has become quite a bit more difficult.
I don't know, though. I think you're getting a little too excited. I feel like black plays moves like queen G4, hitting G2, queen F4 check. Seems like black is really bringing the pressure here.
How are you going to continue with the pressure? I'm going to just go knight C4.
Knight C4, I'll play queen G4.
And, I was going to go bishop G1, but then you have queen G3 check.
Yeah.
But still, I go king H1. I don't know. This is too complicated for me. But now queen G4 looks great.
You are adorable sometimes.
Rook F4 here. Rook F4 is a good move. Just trying to win that
Rook F4 is super strong, everybody. The bishop is pinned to the G2 mate, and E4 falls. Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
No, I think black's pressure here this is one of those positions where when you're evaluating, minors versus a rook or, pieces that want different dynamic things in the position, everybody, king safety is a big telling factor as to who's going to, even just from a practical perspective, who has the threats. And now white is really under fire. Okay, I don't like rook A3. I think your move rook F4 was better, Robert, but black is still in control here. You can just come back to F3.
I have to give everyone in the twitch.tv /chess a shout out because everyone keeps making fun of you for mispronouncing names and words. So I'm sorry, Danny. I love you. It's Valentine's Day. You are my
How do I mispronounce intermezzo?
They like that you say intermezzo, and they also like that you say windmills instead of windmills.
Do I say windmills?
You do say windmills. I've noticed it, but I don't want to,
You wish Bob was your uncle, T. Jewent. All right.
By the way, Julio Becerra is really in business right now with his passed pawn.
He's rolling.
Yeah, Julio is the man.
Where's he at? Let me find you. Julio. And I was like, Julio.
Yeah, look at those pawns. They're just roaming down the board.
Man, I wish I had pawns like that.
Yeah, it's hard to get better pawns than that with your king on H4. I said that was going to happen. And now he can go H2 check. Well, now you just take on B4.
That's a desperate pawn sack. Just roll the B pawn or...
Do you need... How many pawns in the third rank? Oh, sorry, the sixth rank, I guess. Do you need,
right? Bring the rook to h2 with tempo, but the problem is, where's the follow-up? You got to find the win. Okay, what about b3, a6, and then rook a2? Okay, he plays rook a2 first, but I think this is the right idea, because the rook on the a file, everybody, not only stops the pawn, but after b3 and b2, you're threatening rook a1, and the game is over. So, nice move by black there.
Yeah, this is now you can even probably go h2 check, and then king g4, and then bring your knight in. But just rook takes a5 should, or b3, like you said, is just good enough. So, okay, yeah, we can get off this game.
They're all good. They're all good. Okay, well, if Becerra wins, that really moves Miami in the position they need, 8-4, heading into the final 4 games. They are in complete control of their match against the Krakens. Let's move on to the pawn grabbers games. Going down, 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 down.
Are you yelling timber?
Hey, I've been yelling timber for a long time. Nobody seems to care. Oops, that's the St. Louis match. All right, let's go to Wonder Liang's game.
What a wonderful world.
Okay, well, never mind. This is boring. Let's go to a different game.
I look at it, I'm like, oh, no.
It's a Maroczy bind. All right, we love you, Wonder, but let's move on to, Baikovsky versus Shaba. There's no way this doesn't impress.
Let's see it. Well,
it's not as boring as Liang's, but at least White has a chance to blow it. King on
G2. Well, it's not that interesting right now, but you know that things are about to blow up in the center. And actually, this reminds me of Shaba's earlier game where he had those holes on e6 and the c6 against Tom Bartel. So, if he ever moves that b pawn, his c6 square is very vulnerable. But for the moment, it looks like White is just totally... Okay, what is that decision? What?
It's a positional transition. Shaba's capable of positional chess, too.
But it feels like a bad transition because bishop f4, knight... Like, what do you do after bishop f4?
What do you do after bishop f4? I'm kidding, sorry. Bishop f4 hits d6. I see your point. But it just feels... I'm looking at like the bigger picture positionally, and I feel like e5, f4, g3, h4. I just feel like White's positional problems on the dark squares have only just begun.
Yeah, well, you've only just begun to live.
Right, forever. Right. What about if I'll play knight d7 and sacrifice d6 and play bishop e5 or something? I want to get in.
You seem like a Benoni player right now.
You know what? I could go for a Bologna Sammy, but okay.
Well, that game is interesting, though. Trying to look around these matches here. Who is this? Mika Bratton has... Well, that's an interesting game against Raven Sturt.
Okay.
There are many black pawns, but White is up a piece. So that is good news for White. What is going on here?
Flanor 6-8. It doesn't work if you say the joke who it's from. We know the joke. It's better as an inside joke. Robert actually knows I am girl from Egypt. It's one of his best friends. So, all right, where are we going, Robert?
I was going over to Sturt and Mika Bratton, or Mike Bratton. I don't know what she prefers to go by, but it's just kind of a weird position where how many black has 2 pawns for a minor piece. White's king is a little bit airy, kingside, and the white rook on f6 is a little awkward.
This is lovely. I love how weird this is. Black's down a piece, but I think I prefer black. I mean, that's just because I like naked kings.
And naked queens, right?
Well, I mean, depends on... Sorry, let's move on. All right, queen e5. The queen is spying down that king.
Yeah.
You and me both, Flanor 6-8. Nobody ever... fun fact, not even John Bartholomew has ever played the Scandinavian without it being a mouse slip. That's a little-known fact.
It looks like Mika Bratton is going to...
No, yeah, seriously, I guess I was wrong. My bias toward
crazy
a breezy king got the best of me there. Looks like White has nothing to worry about. Why can't I just take f5 and put a bishop on g3 and call it a day?
Yeah, you probably can. You can also go a5 and break open the other side of the board. Yeah, it's looking terrible.
Okay,
so let's go on
White's
to,
choosing between poisons, which means the pawn grabbers are still in control of this match. So where does that put us? Because if they take this game, you're looking at a 6.5, 2.5 lead. Of course, we have to keep our eye closely peeled, even though it was boring to start, on the game between a Wonder Liang and Dr. Basim. But where's my boy? Where's Spinal Tap? This one goes to 11.
Okay.
Where's he at? There he is. Spinal Tap is taking on the one and only the international master. The Shetty has hit the screen.
And I hate Shetty's position. I love Bartel's position.
I love ragu pachetti sauce.
Well, I'm kind of feeling some rigatoni bolognese, honestly. But
that's where you're going after this?
No, I'm just getting hungry. But look at this, the piece in the dark squares. Bishop on f6, knight on d4, knight on c3. White is extremely cramped and passive.
Yep.
If you take on c3, we will get opposite color bishops, but after bishop c3, queen c3, your pawn a3.
I was going to say, it's outscored bishops, but not the good kind. You've got a couple of pawns on the opponent's colored bishop. That's something you got to worry about before you trade into that.
Yep. And that is looking great for Bartel. Bartel's been a nice addition to the Montclair Sopranos. And I think we should go back over to the Bassem Amin versus Wonder Liang game, because that's, Bassem Amin, the first African player to reach 2,700 FIDE in classical chess. And, with this current position, I think a Wonder Liang is in big trouble. We saw him beat Fabiano Caruana in the previous week. But if you look at that d5 square, Danny, not to mention the pawn on d6, not to mention the pawn on b6, not to mention the fact that white has two bishops.
Not to mention that you said not to mention like 4 times. You might as well have gone to Caro and dropped 7 neverthelesses. So. And
not to mention the rook on f1 is spying on the pawn on f7 and the square 6. So long story short, queen 1 here followed by knight d5.
Whenever you're talking, it's a little more like making a short story long. But I hear you. White's better. Let's move on. The thing that's more interesting is I don't know why you took me away from Mom's Pachetti, but that guy's down to 2 minutes, and I'm liking Bartel's chances to get the Sopranos back in this matchup against the pawn grabbers.
Yeah, no, Bartel is dominating this one because now you can't even protect the pawn on a3, as I was talking about earlier. Not to mention that queen can go to d2, right?
Yep. Wait, we have a blunder alert. Mauricio Flores just blundered a rook.
Oh, boy.
There's only one thing I look like better than blundering rooks. Hold on. Where's the game?
Oh, I found it. And then it went away as soon as I clicked on it.
Oh, Mauricio. Mauricio. There it is. I got it. Where's he? I'm going to keep the analysis board focused on Otulia Shetty's game, but what happened here?
There's a great comment by Hassan Tricks in the Twitch chat. They're murdering Shetty. Damn.
We're not murdering anybody. Wait, this must not be the exact same game. I'm looking at the game between Grandmaster Ashwin and Flores.
No, that's not the right game.
That's not the right game. Okay.
It went away because
we can find it. We have the power. It's not hard to look up games on the chess.com server. We have it. The Mauricio
That reminds me
Flores
of Prince Almighty whenever I hear I've
Oh,
got
look
the
at
power.
this. Yeah, this is worthy of finding. Queen to c7. White is putting a little bit of pressure, but not enough to justify queen c8, and queen takes a5. So there you have it, kids. Don't put your rooks on awkward squares. All right. Okay, there's a lot of places to go in this next part of the program. The final round between the Bras and the Bishops is underway. Of course, everyone loves Grandmaster Eric Hansen, but unfortunately, it would take a clean 4-0 sweep for the Bras to get themselves back into this one. As we can see, the odds are at 99% at this point that St. Louis wraps this thing up very soon. Okay. Where to go from here?
Let's see. Well, Laquang Liam is playing Andrew Tang.
Okay.
And this one's interesting because Tang is down a piece for 3 pawns, or 2 pawns, I should say. So he's down some material, but black is extremely active. Now, I don't like black's light squares in the king side. So if that knight moves from g4, let's say back to f6, well, I guess from f6 it defends h7. But the point was that there is some pressure along those squares. And black needs to be quick here because if black is not quick, the extra piece will decide the game. So rook f7, good move. Protecting g7, threatening rook a to f8, pressure on f2 as well.
Agreed.
So I think white should be better here, but I'm not really sure how. or how much?
Yeah, he's up a piece, so, I mean, a piece is a piece, but how do we get rid of the pressure on f2 without creating more problems? I like an idea of rook h3. Whether I can play it or not is another question. But I like playing rook h3 to get my rook to g3, Robert. Kind of flipping the battery the way it should be with the rook leading the way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe I can even play rook h3 and then rook f3 and try to simplify. I can't tell if Fancy Play Syndrome is purposely asking deep, meaningful philosophical questions, like why human beings choose to live in the desert for a reason. But just letting him know that I do try to read the Chess TV chat from time to time. Okay, 92 is not bad. Now you got to deal with the pin, though, on c2, and you certainly don't want to play a move like king to d1. That would be the wrong way.
So knight b3, though, right? Keep hitting that queen. There's the start.
Yeah,
now
get that queen out of there. Now rook h3 feels even better, honestly. You guard the third rank. You come to g3. f2 is not even under fire. I think that white has found the best way to coordinate. Okay.
I'm saying this with full sincerity. I think rook h3 is one of the strongest moves you've ever proposed. And not because like you're not capable of suggesting good moves. It's kind of like a counterintuitive move. Right? Putting your rook up on h3 to then put it on g3 when you can go to rook g1 in one move.
I'm so glad I'm not on camera right now because I'm blushing.
You're blushing? Well, you know,
it is Valentine's Day.
Exactly. But no, really, it's such a great point that the rook on the third rank defends the king, where it can come to c3, but also very importantly, can get into the action with rook g3. So instead of just putting it on g1, where it doesn't have the multi-purpose square, your suggestion was very good. But now rook h to g1, then knight comes to f4 for white.
White's in the driver's seat here. Tang has got a tough one here, even for the Tang train. But we've got some time pressure action. Somehow Raven Stewart is still in the game against Mr. Brattain. So it took Brattain about 7 hours too long to take the knight on f5. So he eventually did it. And he is still winning. So Stewart is certainly up against it. But I'm just surprised this one is still even going.
Yeah. I mean, the bishop on e5 is clearly such a monster. So rook a6 here, followed by bishop f6.
Yep, I was going to say rook a6 followed by queen c6 in some positions too, bring the queen to f6, but yeah.
Oh, I like that too. Yeah.
But okay, so white should take this one, which big for the...
Danny, I'm going to kick us off this game to the Shabalov game because Baikovsky only has 13 seconds left in that one. It's a bit more interesting, I feel like.
Let's do it. I'm there. I got it.
They're more
lead us to some education, Robert. What do we know about this position besides that Shaba's not great with the black pieces at times.
Well, he
look at that move,
too risky of a player. But that move is great.
That's a Shaba move. How dynamic is that? Freeing the c5 square for the knight on the edge of the board, changing the position. Okay, there's also tactics of knight d2, but I think just following that quickly with knight c5. Oh, okay, gain a tempo first. Here comes knight c5 with tempo. And I think Shaba is...
Wait a second, but also bishop takes c3 is possible. They go after the e4
almost
pawn right
anything
away.
There. The pressure is real. Item 9 exists.
Knight takes d3, right? Or no, how about knight e1, Danny? Or is that too fancy?
Oh, you dirty girl. Knight e1, everybody. Overwhelming the queen if you take. We go to Forktown. This is where I wish I had a fork emote and Twitch, and I could get nasty. Okay, he just trades. He just wants to undermine the e4 pawn. I'm guessing bishop takes c3 is coming, or knight takes h2, and then bishop c3, and then queen e4.
We did see Baikovsky the other game with no time in the clock.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think Baikovsky is dangerous, and it's a practical lesson for everybody never to assume to play quickly just because your opponent's the one under time pressure.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of games here are low in time because Baikovsky has 7 seconds. Wonder Liang has 23 seconds. Shetty has 7 seconds against Bartel.
There's so many places to go. Let's keep the analysis board focused on what Shaba does next. Let's check over on the Shetty game before it's over. What do we have here? Shetty shouldn't lose this position. He'd have to really Shetty on this position.
I'm ignoring that one.
Bartel just played e5 and missed it. You can't take back because of f4. That's a fork.
Well, now we probably should stay here because that was a big.
The Shetty just got real for Bartel in this one.
You're so ridiculous.
I don't know why this is happening, but I'm with it.
But I guess G5 here
G5 should still hold for black. Yeah, the extra B pawn is happy town.
Oh, knight D4 is a good idea.
Interesting.
So, okay, so what black needs to do is trade knights, take on F4, put your bishop on E7.
Indeed
and then
he does, but I have to go back in case we don't see the time. He almost lost on time. Baikovsky.
Wow.
We have a queen trade for 2 rooks, but a mating net for black in the process. I clicked over there thinking we might be catching a clippable moment, but Baikovsky made a move with 0.5 seconds on the clock. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to matter because here comes the infiltration of the rooks, and yep, Bob's your uncle.
Wow, Shaba sacked on his queen on E4. God, you got to love Shaba.
Shaba Daba. Let's back this thing up on the analysis board. Follow the analysis board, everybody, if you want to see how Shaba got this far, but it started with this move. Queen takes E4. How nasty is that? Takes E1 with check.
No, that shouldn't have worked, Danny. So I think Shaba did a bad thing.
Why? Shaba did a bad thing?
Yeah. Because after F5, Baikovsky was taking the knight on F3, and in fact, he was the one who was probably winning, I think. So,
yeah, G6 is falling and all kinds of stuff. Well, if Shaba's not a Latvian magician in the style of his forefather, Mikhail Tal, I don't know that anybody is. He put the practical pressure on Batel when it mattered. So don't tell me what Shaba can't do.
Yeah, Baikovsky's going down here. I mean, you're going to run out of checks soon. In fact, you only have one more. Queen D7 check.
Okay, well, he runs the king up. I was going to say rook G6 was maybe a little more accurate for Shaba with the same idea, everybody. The whole point is the rook H1 is coming, and it's over. And, okay, doesn't matter.
Shaba wins.
Shaba wins, and with it, the pawn grabbers increase their lead over the Sopranos. But,
so Bassem Amin won his game over
Bassem
Liang.
Beat a wonder. So the hero from the massive upset over St. Louis is having a rough day, that being a wonder Liang, who fell to Dr. Basim here.
Danny, we got to get to an instructional position between Bartel and Shetty. Look at the H pawn.
I'm all about that, Shetty.
You're unstoppable today. But look at the H pawn for black, and look at the color of the black bishop. Yep. They do not match. Which means
Drawtown, population, Bartel. So who got the moral victory of that? Was there a spiritual takeaway?
Shetty got very lucky there because Bartel was just outplaying him from start to finish. Bartel just seems really strong and underrated at 2350, which is great to have in a board 4.
Well, the only match that isn't almost completely decided at this point is the one between the Blizzard and the Windmills. They were locked at a 4-4 tie heading into this round, but Laquang Liang he didn't make quick work. But that means that the Blizzard are about to fall behind too. Who already lost for the Blizzard? Because
all right, we got it. Well, there's some games going on. Akshat Chandra has 17 seconds left.
I jumped over to the Yems game because Tang only has 8 seconds and is really under the gun.
Akshat Chandra's 8 seconds now too. Both of them are trying to lose on time.
Okay, let me find Akshat Chandra. Stop yelling.
I'm trying to figure out which game to look at because they're both so interesting.
I'm kidding.
So it looks like Tang is totally lost because he's down a piece and he's not.
Yeah, we got Chandra's game up. I agree.
Chandra's game is fascinating because right now they're even material. White has the 2 bishops, but the move knight G6 kind of begs to be played. And the point is you're attacking the pawn at F4. Okay, rook C8 first.
At this point, I'm purposely saying windmills just because it drives people nuts. But it must be a weird accent thing that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, you do say windmills.
I understand I should say windmill and windmills, but for some reason I'm saying windmills, and I don't know why.
That's fine. I don't judge you for it.
Thanks, buddy.
But so rook C1, bishop C1. The big problem for white is if you ever go E3, there's knight F3 check followed by trade bishops, and the knight will be better than the enemy bishop. Yep. So right now, Katerina's doing the
well. She's doing a great job just from a practical point of view, putting pressure. Right? I mean, because Chandra is almost, it's not a literal zugzwang, but he's having trouble finding useful moves. Just don't get your knight on H4 trap. That's how this thing. Don't play a move like G6 and trap your own knight on G5. On H4.
If you go knight G6, right, you're attacking F4. So if you go E3, you just trade off those bishops. And what's a problem for white is that even if you take the G pawn, it's sort of a useless pawn. So I would go knight G6 here, encourage the move E3, and then try to make that trade happen on F1.
Keeping the analysis board focused on Nemcova's battle against Chandra right now. Tang did fall to Laquang Liang, everybody, so that puts the windmills in control by 2 games in this match.
Katerina won on time. She flagged him.
She flagged him?
Wow. Yeah, she went knight F3 check, which he clearly wasn't expecting, and then he flagged.
Wow. Almost like you take advantage of a mouse slip there. She played check, but it's not a bad move because the pawn is legitimately pinned. I mean, if you take here, she trades and
it's just an even endgame, right? Just opposite colored bishops.
yeah.
So that was a huge,
A 3-game already. At minimum, it's a 3-1 round at this point for the Windmills over the Blizzard. This is almost game set match.
Well, they'll need Sean Nagel to pull one out of the hat here because he's the only one with winning chances.
What were the outside prop bets that every one of these matchups today would be 8-4 headed into the last round, Robert?
Yeah, that's
because we're about to see exactly that.
No, this one's not going to be 8-4 because Sean Nagel has no losing chances in this one. In fact, he's the one who's playing for a win at the moment.
Don't go 5-0 on me. Don't never say never me.
Okay, I'll try not to say never ever again. Sorry, Danny.
He almost never say never again.
Cannot believe Chandra flagged because he's so used to this format, so used to playing quick chess.
I think you know what it is, dude. I think he had either pre-moved or he only had 3 seconds, so he was trying to gain time. He was like holding a piece or something, right? And then she shocked him with a tactic, and he just blundered.
So Nagel is winning now, but he needs to be a little bit precise. Just bring the king into either e7 or g7.
Either way, the king has an umbrella. Now play. Yeah, this is nice. Now e6 is coming. Should be over.
And the pawn on g5 is protected, so by the knight. So that's critical. Now king f8, e7, e8, queen is.
Well, black has king f5. No, then knight h6 would fork the king and rook, and game over. So yeah, easy win now. King f8 followed by rushing of the e pawn.
So Nagel's the only one saving them in this current round of the match because that's a huge win. Now it's going to be 7-5, which gives them a puncher's chance.
Gives them a puncher's chance, you're right. And we were nearly in a position where all 3 of these matches were mathematically basically over headed into the last round short of a 4-0 sweep. But Nagel is giving the Blizzard a shot, and he is now officially going to win this one. So we're going to leave this one behind. It's going to be 7-5 in favor of the Windmills. Headed into the last round. So let's focus on some of the games where we started with.
Let's go with Fedar Sayef versus Saric.
Yes, sir.
And Fedar Sayef with the white pieces is much worse. So once again, I am going to be highly critical. Just clearly not working out for the teams. You know, in professional sports, you part ways with a player. They're a free agent.
Yep.
You pick them up. Then you say, you know what, we're going to waive you, and someone else can have you.
Yeah, we're going to release your contract.
Because right now his king is busted. His king is in grave danger. Queen g6 is kind of begging to be played and just go for that g3 pawn. Knight h3 check first because the knight is definitely immune on h3 because the bishop on c8 sort of protects it through the knight on g4. So knight h3 check followed by queen g6 is just lights out. It feels like. I mean, what is Fedor Sayef? I mean, maybe it's the fact that it's really early in the morning for him, and
it's super late / really early in the morning. It's not. I mean, Fedor Sayef is a 20. I think it's also one of the reasons why our stats, not to defend them, but our stats are consistently maybe overrating the bishops because on paper Fedor Sayef is a monster coming into every round, but he's not. He has not been 2,700 30+ strength in the Pro Chess League, and that's because he's probably normally playing at 1 in the afternoon, and now he's playing at 1 in the morning. It's a totally different ballgame.
And you have to assume that like a 2,500 grandmaster would play better than Fedor Sayef has been playing. So, I mean, I don't know what his performance rating is, but it's not been good. And you're actually hurting the rest of your team because you could have a stronger board 4. No offense meant to Forrest Chen if you have a slightly lower rated board, board 2 there.
Just so you know, saying no offense doesn't allow you to say anything offensive that you want. I learned that the hard way at a dinner party one time. Long story. Moving on.
Yeah, I learned that in like first grade, but I'm saying it because I actually think that Forrest Chen is a perfectly good chess player. In fact, he's been playing well. He just hasn't been able to convert his games.
Yep.
So,
gotcha.
Off of this subject before you make me insult Forrest Chen anymore.
Totally gotcha. All right, we move on. There we go. People like my Fievel Goes West reference. There are no cats in America. Well, Fievel Goes to America or Fievel Goes West. One of the rare sequels that might have been better. Fievel Goes West was good. Give him the lazy eye.
Fievel Goes West was good. I actually approve of that choice.
Let's see. Okay, so what else we got? How did Eric Hansen do in his quest
still playing
to bounce back?
He's playing.
He's taking on Akopian.
And it looks like they've been repeating a little bit. Yeah, they've been tickling. Hansen's been tickling.
Well, if Sarge
rook.
beats Fedar Sayef, I mean, that's the first step toward a 4-0 comeback by the Bras. Fedar Sayef's performance rating so far is 26.01 in the Pro Chess League, FYI.
So he's underperforming by well over 100 points. And today's match is going to put that performance lower because he's got what? How many points does he have today? Not enough is the answer. Okay. Still, I guess, a little tricky in that game, but
we'll keep our eye on it. I think Hansen is holding on just fine, but down on time is the real problem here. We'll keep our eye on it. But as we said, heading into this last round, guys, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of super close matches. Short of one team staging an epic comeback, we're about to see a lot of teams clinch before all the games are finished with 3 8-4 leads of the 4 matches being played.
Yep. And, well, that means we can focus on the games we want to focus on rather than on specific match situations, which is not a bad thing.
Look at you finding the glass half full ability. I'll tell you a match I want to focus on. Shaba Daba Ding Dong taking on the Doc. The good doctor.
Papa Doc versus Shaba Daba. I like it.
Papa Doc versus Shaba Daba.
Whoa, what is going on here? There are too many pawns. And both sides have doubled bishop pawns, right? The F pawns are doubled for white. The C pawns doubled for black. But something tells me that this pawn C4 is certainly falling first. And
I agree. And I haven't seen as much tension between 2 bishops since we voted for the last pope. I mean, this is a problem.
That was actually one of your best lines.
The point is, everybody, black doesn't want to take because after the pawn takes, you can say goodbye to ever getting this knight into the attack. And if white captures, well, you might as well just sign your resignation along with it. So this is the bishop tension here is a real problem because black would really like to release it so that he could either open up the F file or do something like F4. But Shaba's going to gobble the C4 pawn before too long, so.
Yeah. And I'm keeping an eye, by the way, on this.
Oh, yeah, Fiva Goes to America was a blunder. My bad, chat. You're right. It's an American tale. Don't correct me about my Fifel movies, okay?
Also, you got corrected. Bishops don't participate in Pope elections. It's cardinals only. So that was apparently a faux pas on your part, but I don't blame you because I didn't know that. For sure. So,
hey, did it get a laugh out of Robert?
Oh yeah, it did. I loved it. It's one of your best ones ever. All right, so I'm keeping an eye on this match. I think we have to go back to Eric Hansen versus Akopian because the game is really interesting.
Okay.
And Hansen has 14 seconds left, and he's a chessbrah, and the fans love him. So all of that put together.
You just checked 3 boxes on my bucket list.
And now, no, Hansen's position is great right now. With the control over the queen side, the 2-on-1 majority there is much more important than that lone pass D pawn. I don't know if I would have played king e7. I actually don't really love the king on that side of the board. I think king g7, but then maybe there's bishop d4. So if that's the case, then maybe was overestimating black's position. Okay, rook c8. There's still pressure on the queen side. I do like black here, but I think that white is not out of it quite yet. But I'm still going back and forth between these games. For the Chessbrahs, Lefrancois is up a pawn against Forrest Chen. In fact, that is closing in on being victorious, I feel like. Fedar Sayef is getting his butt kicked. In fact, wait, what? Fedar Sayef won on time?
How?
And 1 on position. What did Sarge do? What?
I'm telling you, the Chessbrahs. It's a rough season. Buckle up.
It's an endemic. They are just. What happened here?
I'm looking at the analysis board. Actually, I'm going to keep the analysis board focused. No, I'm going to keep the main board focused on Eric so we can watch the time. Everybody can stay on the edge of the seat for that one. But what happened here? I mean, I agree. In case you can't tell in my tone, I'm crying inside.
Yeah, and this is going to inflate Fedar Sayef's stats to make it look like his performance is better than he's playing.
But look at this. He's down the queen. Black is up 6+ in this position. He's simply taking care of business, 9-5, pulling a Dolly Parton. And how did he blow this position here? Where did the attack go?
It went away.
It just went away.
Disappeared.
It just disappeared.
Okay.
And all of a
wanna
sudden,
look at
white
the
is winning on rook f7. He just completely misses how strong the pawns are because the rook on a3 falls and black's
you can just
lost.
go rook takes e3 there instead of all the stuff that he did. Yeah, okay, I don't want to look at this ever again.
No, but where did he just like? Where was like just like boom? Sarich wins, game over. Brah's comeback still lives.
Yeah, I mean Sarge. Yeah. So okay, so St. Louis. I can't look at that game anymore. Please stop making me
It's
look
heartbreaker.
at it. Back to Hansen. Hansen has 5 seconds left.
Yeah, he's living on the edge, living on the increment.
Well, he's up a pawn now. Opposite colored bishops. Black is up a pawn. Has the first licks at giving a check on the d file if the rooks weren't just traded. Now they are being traded, and the problem for white is that this h4 pawn is actually difficult to defend. So if the white king gets distracted over to the queen side, there may be problems with this h pawn. But also rook d4 here from white. He took on d5. Look at the clock situation, both under 7 seconds left. So what Hansen should do is go a5, a4, b3, put your bishop defending that passed pawn. So b3 here. Now just bring your king over to the king side and go after this h4 pawn. Because from g4, once the king gets to g4, you can't defend both of your pawns, and now the game's over.
He did it. Well played by Eric, given that he was literally living off...
Wait a second. The problem is, if I take on h4, right, black keeps the bishop on e5.
White, yeah.
White keeps the bishop on e5. Once you go king h5, white goes bishop g7. So I think what black has to do there is put a bishop on g8 and then go pawn to h5.
Yeah, you have to be willing to sack the pawn to create a passer.
Although I don't know if... So bishop g7 here.
Bishop g7, make a waiting move maybe. Bishop g8, bishop will go to f8 here.
So king c3 should be played.
We just won on time. Akopian runs out of time. Oh my gosh.
I think I had Akopian on my fantasy team.
Did you?
I think so. Most importantly...
Well,
come on, VAR.
The bishops have clinched the match against the Chessbrahs regardless, but that was a...
No, I didn't. Yes. Okay, good. Just checking. I fooled you. I had Yaroslav. He won. He beat Shiam. So, yeah, brutalization by the Archbishops over the Bras. So let's go to matches that still matter.
Yeah, Fabiano Caruana is actually hanging out on chess.com. The real Fabiano Caruana, we can confirm his account. And he said exactly that. He said that Eric would have been winning after king to g4, even if bishop f8 is played, or king c3. King g4, bishop back to e5, and then h6 takes, and then g5. You give white 2 passed pawns just to create 1. Even a move like bishop h7, and the game is over. Black should win.
And Benny Vidivici, 42, in the Twitch chat goes, Caruana outdated, Sarich overrated, long have we waited, Chessbrahs relegated. Now that is poetry in action.
That's poetry. But anyway, shout out to Fabiano Caruana hanging out in the chess.com chat and reminding Eric how he was winning that game. So where are we going next? I don't know. So what matches are still going? Webster and Minnesota is the one that really matters. They're at the beginning of the round, I feel like. Yeah, well, you've got GM on GM action with Tang taking on Banus. You've also got Mauricio Flores taking on Laquang Liem.
And you also have Chandra playing Ashwin. So that's 3 GM on GM battles.
Hey, somebody get the camera.
The most interesting game thus far, I believe, is the Nagel game. He heard me saying...
a match we didn't give much love to for the last 2 rounds, just a quick shout-out, was the Miami win over the Krakens. But they've already clinched it, and so there you go. The champions are winning, but I just wanted to make that note.
Let me go over to Julio Becerra's game. He just got his rook trapped in the most interesting way.
Okay.
And that's bad for my fantasy team, but it's awesome as a commentator / spectator.
What you got for me? Ooh, the rook on h4 is...
So he went c5 trying to free up that rook.
And then after bishop e7, everybody, rook c4 runs into b5, and the rook is trapped. Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very frequently.
And he just straight up says, okay, well, that was an accident. I'm just going to sack the rook.
And actually, after bishop h4, c takes b6, it looks like you can't stop my pawn, but you have rook e8 first, which is a very important.
Pinning the bishop, and it falls with check. That's the key.
Exactly. So,
yeah,
and then after f4, bishop f6, and you pick up the bishop, and that's all.
All she wrote.
All you wrote.
Wow. So, well, back up just a couple moves since we missed the moment before it. This was a really, really awkward rook lift. When you rely on a rook on the 4th rank to defend your pawn, things like this happen. Rook h4, h5, and the rook, in all honesty, was already trapped even before c5, but this was a super... This is as sexy as it gets with a rook trapped in the middle of the board. So that would have been fun. Looks like Becerra's going down. With it, Robert Hess's fantasy team takes a massive blow, and Greg Shahade goes wild.
You better pause before you keep talking trash from my fantasy team. So you better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah,
as they say.
Just don't hurt yourself with where you're going with that. But rhyme time. All right, where are we going?
Right. I think we have to stay in this Minnesota Webster match, just because really the only match that's still
okay. Well, let's see what's going. Let's start with the top. Let's start at the top, as all things should. We got Mauricio Flores taking on Liang Liang in an interesting one, faux show.
I like black. I like the fact that despite white having the 2 bishops, the move knight a5 here, threatening knight c4, the bishop on g7 is a beautiful piece. You can take 2 rooks for the queen by going queen takes a8, but unfortunately for white, too many of your pawns fall after that, right? The pawn on b2 is hanging. The pawn on c5 is directly going to be a target after knight c4 coming. So, I mean, maybe it's possible, but knight a5 I do like.
Yeah.
And there he played it. Yeah. So good-looking position for Liang Liang. And how about over there on board 2, we have Andrew Tang white, Tomas Banush black, and I like black's position on this board as well. Tang is up a pawn, but quality of the pieces over quantity of the pieces rings true here for sure. So here, white, like I said, white's up a pawn, but the bishop on a6 is preventing white from castling. And if you can't castle, you can try to do it slowly with move f3 and hand castle, but then you run to e5, right? So it's just an unpleasant position for white. I don't know. This doesn't look good. Let's see.
Yeah, no,
Who else is underway here? We have Akshat Chandra with the black pieces against Ashwin, Jairam. And I don't like black in this game. Oh, I don't like the decision by Ashwin to take on d4 with the knight. Now, a lot of people would say, well, of course you take with the knight on d4 and don't give yourself an isolated pawn.
Right.
But it was important to give your bishop on d2 some space on the diagonal via f4, via g5. And by taking on d4 with the knight, now white always has to be tied down to this pawn on e3. Playing e4 is exceptionally difficult. And so for black, you can just play a move like bishop to f8, eventually make the move g6, and your bishop can even go to h6 eventually to attack this pawn.
Well, I was just going to highlight that. The illusion is that the d5 pawn is the weakest pawn on the board because it's isolated. In this case, the e3 pawn is by far the bigger problem. And so I totally agree with you. I think white needed to take on d4 with the pawn, and now... Okay, Chandra plays bishop d6. I think that's fine, although I'm just looking at a move that tickles the bishop, like knight f5. I kind of like your plan of bring the bishop all the way back to f8 to start. That's a weird... Bishop d6 was a little weird by Chandra. I think he should have gone for the long-term plan, bishop f8, relocate the bishop, and kind of focus in on the e3 target. So, I guess...
Yeah, if you want to see... Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to say, if you want to see a weird position, this position is very normal. If you check out Katarina versus Sean Nagel, one of the more bizarre positions you'll see today, because not a single piece has been traded, and there's a ton of action going on the 4th rank. And there are 7 pawns, 2 of them black, 5 of them white on this 4th rank here.
Yeah.
Something is telling me that white is a little overextended, and thus...
But it's a lot of space, too. I think one of the biggest issues you have here if you're white is no push makes you happy. If you push a move like d5, you got to counteract e5. You got pins and dark square problems. If you push e5, you're just opening up this bishop on b7, and something is bound to go wrong there when that bishop gets freaky on the diagonal. So,
What about c5?
C5 is the one move that doesn't have an obvious counter problem. In fact, it looks like maybe White's best candidate move, right? Play C5 and try to open up some counterplay there. You do open the bishop on B3. Something tells me that you're right with your initial instincts that White is overextended. Maybe Black just meets C5 with E5 anyway, Robert, taking advantage of the pin. Maybe.
Yeah, and
Call me
the thing
maybe.
that Black is careful about as well is that there's sort of this pressure on the B6 square with the knight eventually coming to C4. So you're right, E5 definitely looks tempting. Of course, right? You're trying to hit it at F4 pawn, but I don't know. I feel like White has to do something. Otherwise, you just are.
Yeah.
I don't see any other move, essentially. Bishop E1 cannot be right because now your move E5 just looks great.
Yeah, and he should come with it. Bring the heat. Well, it'll be fun to get into more arguments about the performance of Fedar Sayef, as we're kind of being called out for our criticism, given that he did go 3 of 4 today. But we'll save that for another time, given that we'll have plenty of more calls in the Atlantic Division. I still think that the overall evaluation of Fedar Sayef as a free agent, to me, has been less than impressive. But okay, I guess the Bishops won today. They won going away against the Chessbrahs 10-6. So I guess from that perspective, they can't be too upset, right? A win's a win, as they say.
Yep. So maybe we are being a little harsh, but I'm not impressed. He needs to score more points for them. He's there's the top gun. So anyway, okay, where else should we go within this match? So Liang, Mauricio Flores did go for the rooks and A8, but unfortunately for him, his passed C pawn is going to be lost, it seems. I don't see a way to defend it.
Agreed.
Because if you go C6, Black just goes Queen C8 and forces that bishop to either move to B7, in which case you just take it and take the pawn off the board, or you leave it on A8, in which case that bishop will be hanging there for a while.
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about Liang versus Mauricio Flores. Apparently, according to in the Twitch chat, Eric Hansen has faced the toughest set of opponents in league with average rating of 26-19. So that's interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, so C6 was played. So maybe Bishop D6 is better than Queen C8. I was trying to go Queen C8 and take your bishop, but then I got a little bit concerned about something that I haven't figured out yet. Maybe Queen C8 is just good, but Bishop D6 also looks plenty good as well. Yeah,
Hansen did do good today. He started out with a loss and then finished strong. So no, Hansen did good today. Unfortunately, the Brahs still find themselves in a tough spot, in their case, due to their own free agent acquisition in Saric, who just did not have his best chess. But, okay, it looks like Liang is going to do what he needs to do for Webster. Okay, so where does that leave the Blizzard? This is the close match. Okay, so if the Windmills get this win from Liang, where
it's 8-5.
They'll be up 8-5. That puts even more pressure on Tang to come up with something here as White, although Black in the driver's seat right now. That king on E7, so solid, so nice.
Solid's one way of putting it. What is really solid, though, is the F6, E5 chain.
Yeah.
Because in order to break it, you have to go F4, which permanently exposes that A8 to H1 diagonal.
Yep.
The pawn on G2 is a little bit iffy. Not to mention that the E3 pawn itself can become a target. So,
but you may have to go for something like that anyway at some point.
Yeah, because you
make
need
the
some
position
sort of
more double-edged. At this point, I think White has to do something.
Yeah, I guess F4 definitely should be a consideration. And after F4, well, I guess it's Black's move first. But so I have to figure. So you go Knight A4, just hitting the queen. So he goes Knight D3, and now if F4,
well,
I guess
I think if F4, he might have Queen B6. I wonder if that's his idea. He's
or you take on F4 because now Queen E3 check is a pretty deadly threat.
Yeah, also good. So Knight D3, kind of an interesting, both aggressive and prophylactic move. It guards E5, guards F4, puts the knight in an aggressive position to hit F2. I like it.
Yeah, I like Black's position here. Not looking good for the Blizzard. And, I mean, do they even have a chance? They need a sweep on the other boards that's not Lequang Liam. I guess Nemcova's game is getting really interesting once more because Nagel sacked the pawn. Instead of just going e5 and winning the f4 pawn, which looked great, honestly, he ended up sacking his g pawn, Nagel did, against Katerina.
But got his king out of the center, and now white is... This is just a position where, from a practical perspective, you just love black's chances. You feel like the tactics will start jumping off of the H and G files.
But I'm worried now about c5, Danny. I agree with you that the H and G files are open. The bishop on g3 is a great defender, honestly.
Yeah.
And c5 starts a counterattack over there on the queen side. So,
but c5, e5, and it feels like a matter of time before the e5 break comes, and with it you have the knight, the bishop, the pawn. Everybody will gang up on f4.
But going e5, I can take on d6 first, and then take on e5, and the b6 pawn will be hanging, and it's just getting crazy.
But she opens up the diagonal willingly to prevent e5. Not a bad move though, Robert. Honestly, because if no obvious problems occur from e5, you can bring the bishop from d1 to f3, and that trades off a potentially critical defender of the light squares over here.
So I was going to start with knight h4, because since Nagel's in a sacrificial mood, knight h4 looks very tempting. He's not going to do it, I don't think. But knight h4 here is just...
Yeah. No, that could be a lot of fun. Knight h4, everybody. Bishop takes would run into a real-life windmill. Okay? Rook takes g2 would be a problem, followed by a whole bunch of checks. So...
And he didn't play it.
He didn't play it. He should have, though. I like knight h4.
Well, now knight h4 is still possible, but then white at least gets to trade those bishops off the board.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, I like Katerina's approach. Honestly, I don't know what the tactical approach was there that maybe black missed, because have no engine line in front. We have the evaluation bar, but no analysis or variations with it. I have no idea, but it looks to me like Nemcova has seen the worst of it, because I really like this bishop f3 idea.
Yeah, we're getting word, by the way, just for everyone who's a Shaba fan like we are, Shaba beat Bassem Amin. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, Pittsburgh has clinched their match with a 9-5 score already, regardless of how the final games finish. I wonder Liang is still in action over there. Atulia Shetty is still in action, but the pawn grabbers have won, so we only have one matchup that is undecided, and this game here could be critical for the results.
Yeah, and all right, so it looks like Lequang is making progress. He got rid of that passed pawn on the queen side for white, so he's doing well. Which game should we stick with?
Knight h4. I didn't want to leave, and I didn't. Nagel does go for knight h4, and I'm not. It's not nearly as good as it maybe once was, but like any good Toby Keith song, it might be as good once as he ever was. Let's take on b7.
Did you really just get a Toby Keith reference in there?
That might be my first.
And hopefully your last.
What do you got against Toby?
I got nothing against Toby, but I just don't want you quoting Toby Keith. Or whatever. But we'll have this argument later.
All right. Well, okay. Let's check over on Lequang Liam's game. Agreed, Town. He's just... the position isn't nearly as we'll keep the I want to keep the analysis board spying. We're spying right now on Katerina's game against Sean Nagel, but
yeah, no, Katerina's we're spying there, but the Lequang he's got an extra 2 pawns, right? It's a queen against 2 rooks, but queen and 2 pawns versus those rooks.
We're keeping our eye on both. Because the arguments about just how good did Fedar Sayef do continue, I'm bringing up the full player stats here to give everybody a view into what went down. We know the bishops took down the Chessbrahs. There you can see the full player stats of how everybody did. Fedar Sayef with 3 out of 4. Akopian with 2. Really, Zherebukh was the hero. He went 4 of 4 for the bishops, if you're keeping track at home. That's a guy on your fantasy team that Hess has.
And guess who had him on their fantasy team?
Right. Shaba goes 3 out of 4. Atulia Shetty and Wonder Liang are still playing right now. But really the top performers so far, I guess if you want to say based on points, were Becerra, Fedar Sayef, Shabalov, and Zherebukh. So,
yeah, well, I had Lequang, who's going to be the highest scorer once he wins this game. I had Zherebukh, who was the highest scorer.
Yep.
I had Becerra, who had the highest score, tied with Hansen.
Can we
and then I had
stop?
Bartel.
Hey, enough about me. What do you think about me? Can we stop talking about your fantasy team right now? I get
I'm
it.
just letting everybody know that I was already doing well, and I might win this week, and that's the biggest accomplishment in my life, bigger than becoming, bigger than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, right. Although I think Greg appreciates that. All right, well, Lukwang Liang is going to show us why the queen outplays the rooks in positions where you have both targets on both sides of the board and an open king. And that's when the queen is at her best doing work against pieces that have to coordinate in order to compete with her. And so I think Liang will get this one as black. It should be a nice victory. Where do we want to go? I'm still spying on Katarina's game with Nagel, which is really, it's going Katarina's direction. What you see is white has achieved c5. White has achieved the elimination of the light square bishops. Things are going the direction of Katarina Nemcova, which doesn't spell good things for the Blizzard, who are already down heading into the last round of this matchup.
And if you know her chess like I know her chess, she is just itching to really fully break open the position. She is a great tactical player. She loves open space. She doesn't like those kind of John Bartholomew positions where
John Bartholomew positions. I love it.
I only brought him up because he plays in Minnesota, but Bartholomew's great, but he sometimes plays a little bit dry positions. And here, Nemcova, well, she's up a pawn, and that extra pawn means something here, especially as pieces get traded off. And now the white knight on d3 can also retreat to f2 if need be to cover the h1 square if there's any queen h4 mating ideas. So I love white's position here. Up a pawn.
Yeah, no, this whole idea, again, of e5, and I don't know, I'm just trying to think about the position in my head where Nagel had better, but I really liked the idea just from it was obvious to a human positional point of view that the bishop coming to f3 was going to be a great trade for white.
Yeah, and now knight c5. So the question is, do you take that knight on c5? I don't think so, because that might get your king in trouble. So queen c6 here to take, wait. Yeah, queen c6. And if rook takes f3, just queen takes f3? No, that doesn't look great. So wait, maybe knight takes c5 first. Wow, that's a great in-between move.
Well, if queen to c6, rook takes f3, knight takes c5, you're not... Oh, you are threatening nastiness.
No, make queen b6 check first. Yeah, queen b6 check first. That's important.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it looks like Nemcova's in the driver's seat here. One game that's getting under a little more time pressure is the one between Akshat Chandra and Grandmaster Ashwin. Here, Chandra is under a minute, who's been under time pressure consistently today. Still doing fine, though. He never did find himself with real pressure against the e3 pawn, despite our criticisms of Ashwin's approach. But if it wasn't for time, you'd say that black was doing just fine here.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid-looking position. The bishop on g7 is a little bit awkwardly placed, just because it's behind a pawn f6. But yeah, Akshat's doing fine, and it's funny because he's very good at speed chess and is always near the top in Title Tuesday events. But in classical or longer time control games, it seems like he's a glutton for time trouble. So he always seems to have a little time on the clock.
Yeah, people with time pressure issues tend to be good bliss players.
Yeah. Grishuk in particular comes to mind. And the Tang Banush game is getting really interesting because the position is being blasted open, which must favor Tang.
Yeah, how did that happen? He achieved f4 and didn't get punished for it. Let's back this thing up.
And rook c6 is a good looking...
Oh, Robert, he played e4 first and then f4 and sacrificed the b pawn to get open space. A good practical approach there from Andrew, and now black's king is going to be in permanent danger. Yeah,
though also white's king has to be careful too, because queen a7 check, right?
Yeah,
spying on
queen
that
a7
diagonal.
check hitting the f2 square. Although at this point, I'm not even sure white cares that much about the exchange if I can take on f6 with check and open up opportunities against the black king, and that's exactly what Tang does. What do I do now? Okay, I wanted to move the bishop and get threats on f6, but bringing the knight in also makes sense.
So
I think Tang gets this one. I mean, at this point, with this kind of time advantage and knowing how tricky a swindler Andrew Tang is.
But I agree with you based on the time situation. But what I think is And I think that white objectively is better.
Well,
the problem
there's already threats here, dude. Like knight takes f6, just on the spot.
Right.
If knight takes, rook takes, and bishop g5, isn't black just winning? I mean, white just winning.
Wait, isn't there a... Oh, wait a second. I was going to say, well, bishop g5, do you have queen a7 check there and then knight f2 check? Haha, counter tactics.
You dirty little dog.
But I think...
Maybe.
What I was going to say, I mean, black gets one more move and plays rook g6, and just like ultra defends the f6 square. That extra c pawn in the long run will come in handy. So it's one of these positions where white seems to be doing very, very well, but there's no clear path to victory. In which case,
we'll keep
the black extra pawn will come in handy.
We'll keep the main board on this one so we can see Andrew's time as he tries to come up with a swindle. But Laquang Liem, if you look at the analysis board, did take home the victory against Mauricio Flores, which means the Windmills have clinched a tie, at least, against the Blizzard. So.
That's good news for them. Well, and it looks like the other matches are totally done. Is that right?
Yeah, the other matches are completely done. The final scores you see on the board are exactly how it's going down. The Krakens did come back after Becerra lost. We didn't focus a lot on that matchup, partly because they had already lost the match. The champions were up 9-5 if you're just joining us, and so we didn't follow those last couple of games closely. But the Krakens did make it a little closer than that match actually was.
Wait a second. And is this right? It says that a Wonder Liang drew his game, but he was dead lost in the final position. Is that... Wait, maybe he's not actually as... Yeah, that's weird.
Did he offer a draw and his opponent just took it or something? That's weird.
Yeah, that's very strange. I mean, Bukowski had no time, but I mean, I wonder Liang got an extra half point more than he deserved, it looks like.
Okay.
And Shaba, we said, beat Bassem Amin, so we just have a couple of games left.
Well, I don't think anything is going to be more exciting than this one right here. And honestly, unless we want to keep both Nemcova versus Nagel and Tang versus Banus on our radar, but I want to see what happens here between Andrew and Tomas.
Yeah, the Nemcova game is just looking great for Katerina now.
As the analysis board shows you, everybody, white is just crushing here. Nemcova has... She really defended. I was thinking black was about to open up things with gusto on the king side, but she really did. She found e5 and bishop f3, so really great game from Katerina today.
Yep. And so this leaves... Wait, wasn't Tang...
Well, it means that when Katerina wins this game, it's going to be over in favor of the Windmills,
Whoa.
But... What?
Whoa, bishop g5.
Okay, we saw this idea. I saw this idea, but I was thinking knight takes f6 first. Perhaps even better. What happens on just f takes? What's the answer?
Yeah, I don't know, because if you go knight f6, then queen a7 check looks all right. Although there are threats of knight d5. Of course, then rook on g8 is hanging, but so is knight d5 check. So it's not like it's that clear cut.
Well, Tang took about 3 minutes on that move, everybody. So clearly he calculated something, and we'll see how black responds to it with only a minute to do so. One thing about what?
Is there any choice but to take on g5?
I think he just has to. And I was going to say one thing about it is there may be another move here, Robert, because the knight on e4 guards f2. Okay, he goes for it. I was going to say maybe there was some other move for Tang because there is no threat of queen a7 and knight f2 as long as that knight was on e4. Okay, but we're going to find out. Here we go. I mean, I don't know why this works for Tang.
Yeah, I don't know if it does, honestly.
What's the threat here?
Rook f8. No, I don't like that move because now knight
d5 check looks nasty.
But then king e6?
Knight d5. So if king e6...
Rook f8 was a bad move.
Okay, the point, everybody, if king e8, you just lose because white can trade. Tang checks on h8 and then takes on h7 and wins the queen. So now the king has to run, which is what black is doing. But where's the win? Where's the beef, as they say? I don't see it for white. I don't see the win.
Take on f8. Yep,
okay,
played.
the d5 knight falls. I assume, yeah, okay, black takes it, I assume.
Yeah, there's no immediate mate. I was going to say rook d8 check. Giving checks is generally a good thing, but I'm not seeing a forced mate or anything. And the knight and... Ooh, that move looks decent. Bishop c8 here, right? Protect f5?
Yeah, bishop c8 is a nice move. I like it.
And the great news for black is that the queen on c3 has no check. So bishop c8 also covers the a5. Okay,
ooh,
that
rook
can't
e6. Okay, he's going to meet rook f5 by blocking with the rook and hope that rook d8 check doesn't deliver anything too devastating. Ah, but queen a5, not sure he saw this move. This puts black in a world of hurt. Now he has to back up, and he loses all of the tactics on f2. Okay, queen c5, but now rook f5.
Then knight or rook something to e5. Oh, but if I go to rook e5, you end up taking my bishop on a6, don't you?
Yeah, if rook e5, I gobble. I think I gobble.
Gobble.
Okay, he goes for it. We're gonna find out. I think Tang is taking
e5,
on
rook
a6
d1
here.
check. What's wrong with this queen takes a6?
I don't know that anything. I think Tang might just be doing his due diligence, but I think he's gonna win now. Not gonna be enough to save the Blizzard's chances here in this match, most likely, but it's not over yet. Nagel has not lost to Nemcova just yet. We're going to check on that game in just a second, but we don't want to go anywhere because this could be a nice, fun moment here.
What about king d4 for black? I'm just thinking if I give up, save my king and just try to use a c pawn, it might not be that easy for white. Okay,
Knight
that's
F2,
not good.
that doesn't work.
That just now queen b5 or queen b7 or no, queen b5 is queen c5. Wait, queen c5? Oh, then queen d7 check.
Yeah, it's mate.
Oh, king e4. What is going on here?
He's letting him out. He's on the run.
Is he out?
A king on the run.
King. No, now it's h3, right?
Queen d1's good enough.
G3, queen h5.
Yep.
Nice.
If king h4, g3, everybody mate down, followed by queen h5. The
Wow,
Tang train strikes again.
Nice conclusion there. I feel like Tang just gets in these really hectic positions and then, ends up victorious. I feel like he's on the winning end of a lot of these close battles.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's a time scramble that he's good at.
And Katerina has blundered, at least it looks like she's given away most of her advantage because her king is in trouble. Knight takes g6
Yeah, I'm looking
here.
at the position, and okay, this is... Okay, with Tang winning 6-8, Nemcova, if she doesn't take care of business here, the Blizzard have an outside chance at eking away a draw. The last game in progress, in addition to this, is the one between Akshat Chandra and Grandmaster Ashwin. Chandra is the only one who can win this. This is not over yet.
And Chandra's winning.
I mean,
which
he's
means
winning,
that
so
Nagel needs to somehow get a win from this position.
if Chandra, the analysis board, everybody is showing the position between Chandra and Ashwin. Chandra is black. This is a pretty easily winning ending. If Nagel somehow swindles a mating net in the position we're watching, this could be one of the biggest last round comebacks I think we've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, they were down 8-5. All they needed was a half point.
So knight e1 check. Pick up that knight in e2. Uh-oh, rook and knight versus rook.
Unbelievable. Okay.
I think he's gonna win this.
Okay, he has no business winning this. This is still
Absolutely
an easy
not.
draw. It's
Very
one of the
easy.
easiest draws, but the psychological factor that Nemcova was the only one who could win, and she's found a way to get herself in this position, makes me think you might be right.
Yeah, it's very difficult to overcome the fact that she was like pretty easily winning, and now is the one fighting. Has kind of back against the wall.
For those
Should
wondering,
draw.
the game between Chandra and Ashwin is the one in the analysis board. It is simply over. Chandra will win, which means the score you're looking at, with only a 1 point lead for the windmills, makes this game with Nemcova. It decides everything. She either holds the draw, or the Blizzard complete an improbable comeback.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
In fact, Chandra, I don't think had any business winning that game either. So, like a lot of
Well, even
strange...
Tang's game was wild. I mean, like you said, he ends up being on the winning side of a lot of those scenarios, and Andrew gets full credit for that. But that game was totally wild.
Yep. And look at this. Nagel's been pushing the king back. But what's the easy way to make a draw is just keep that rook behind the pawn.
Yeah,
There's no
behind the
pawns.
knight.
Behind the knight, exactly.
Just the best way to draw here, everybody. Okay, you don't have to do that. You can put the king directly in front. As long as the rook is in a position where the king and knight can't quite coordinate, this is just an easy draw. But okay, blunders happen. And
they certainly do.
And that's what Nagel is playing on for the chance that Katerina will
And look at
blunder.
the clock situation. Katerina is not exactly doing well on that clock.
No, she's not. She's also getting down on time. This is just getting closer and closer. Okay, still, but again, the point, everybody, all we're going to be doing is being on the edge of our seats like you for drama, because this is just a draw. There isn't anything but a draw here. How many moves will it take to get to the 50-move rule? That's a question we have to wonder at this point.
It takes 50 moves to get to the 50-move rule, Danny.
What I meant is from where we are right now. Yes, but thank you.
Sorry, I had to do that.
Robert, when does the 50-move rule kick in? At 50 moves.
Yeah.
This will not be a Magnus Carlsen losing on time, because there is increment here, everybody. So, see, here the best move is a move like rook a1. Don't even see if you go check or go behind. Now black gets king e5. That's a good lesson for drawing this. You don't want to get the rook constantly in a position where it can be cut off by the king and the knight, where the knight can sort of umbrella the king from checks. You want the rook to be in a position where it's away from forks, like on a1, and it can constantly come to all sides of the king and knight. And she's doing that for the most part. But
yeah,
and I think Nemcova is doing a good job. Honestly, now this is exactly what you don't want, because the king can't hide. Okay,
right. And I mean, the big issue, right, as we keep seeing, is that you need the knight to be active, but the only way to shield the king from checks is with the knight. Yep. So the knight always has to retreat.
Right. So again, short of a blunder, that's what we're going to see.
King e4, making a little bit of progress. Inching. Okay, now the king's in the back rank, so he's made actually quite a bit of progress, but it might be 50 moves already.
I don't think so.
When was the last?
I'm going to check on the analysis board here. Let me see. The analysis board reveals to us, everybody, that the last trade was made way back on move. Right here. So let's see. The last trade was made on move 74. And indeed, she gets a draw, and she clinches the match for the windmills.
Wow. What a comeback, though, by the Blizzard. They
really were. That became a lot closer than was intended, if you're a fan of Webster. So, well, wowzers. We have the Pacific Division coming right up. We take a look at the final full scoreboard here today, everybody. And we have what you see in front of you. The windmills take down the Blizzard, the pawn grabbers, the champions, and the bishops sweep the left side of your scoreboard. Individual performances that are their best are right in front of you there. Liang does well. Katerina Nemcova has about as good as a board 4 performance as anybody, I guess, besides Delamorta. So she helps the windmills.
Well, Bartel and Rosenthal got 2.5, actually.
Yep. And if we go over to the main site and take a look at the standings as I navigate my way over there, everybody. The Atlantic Division is exactly as you see it. Those are live scores. Our standings are updated instantly after the rounds finish. And we see that the Bras are still safe from having to re-qualify to next season, right? But they have to turn it on big time if they're going to find themselves back in the playoffs. The windmills, the pawn grabbers, the Blizzard, and the bishops. I mean, given the way the seasons have gone, I mean, we're not surprised by that, right, Robert? Those have been the best 4 teams in the Atlantic, and the scoreboard reflects that.
Yeah, I think people have been surprised that Pittsburgh has been doing so well, because they were not the team to beat last year. They've kind of revamped their lineup. They have a Wonder Liang, who's been, generally speaking, outperforming. And it's just that on paper, their team doesn't seem that great. They have 2 grandmasters, but they have 2 quite solid and strong. Well, I don't think Shaba is solid. He's actually just like the most adventurous GM out there. But their bottom boards are doing quite well for them, scoring some upsets. So Minnesota, Pittsburgh, similar teams, and St. Louis has been underperforming, but they got a big match today, a big match victory to keep them in the playoff hunt. And in fact, they're looking very favorable the rest of the way, though they will lose. It's not official or anything, but they will lose Fabiano Caruana for probably the rest of the season, because he has the candidates to play in. So that's right. Something to keep an eye on.
No, that's huge. So obviously, as the next round gets set to go, shout out to everybody who's been with us and active in the Chess TV and the Chess.com and the Twitch TV chat. We got Grandmaster Ben Feingold and David Pruis, as Ben just said in the Chess TV chat. The A-team is on their way. Ed Vedder, Rowan Foxley, everybody who's in the chat. Har84, thanks for being here. Everybody that's here. What we have in regards to the Twitch chat, say hi to everybody over there before we go away. Somebody yelling, Danny. I don't know what that's about, but thanks for being here. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up in the Pacific Division, Robert. We talk, obviously, we reveal a lot of stats as we discuss things about the divisions that happened before we get started. But the Pacific that's about to get underway, if you're looking at the matchups, everybody, that you can see the odds right in front of you. The Rio Grande Ospreys are favored by 58%. Partly that's because the Seattle Sluggers, I believe, are spotting a half a point due to a last-minute lineup change. I'll check my facts on that, but I think so. The Surfers are slightly favored against the Rats. Kangaroos and Destiny, also pretty close matchups. And then the Hackers really coming in with the heavy hitters this week. You've got Shakir Mamadjarov playing for the Hackers this week. You got Danya Naroditsky, who plays as well as anybody does on the chess.com server. So if you're looking at the Pacific Division and you're wondering what's in store for you, some pretty exciting matchups. Obviously, some of the biggest names playing for the Pacific coming up. You have Alexei Dreyev and Craig Hilby, who will be playing for the San Diego Surfers. Got to give a shout out to Ostrovsky playing for the Las Vegas Desert Rats. He's a streamer. We love our program streamers. Melikachian, not streaming, but well known for his videos. The Grandmaster Wang Yu and Grandmaster Zhu Wenjun, still the reigning women's world champion, isn't she?
I believe she has a match coming up, and I believe she's not the champion, if I'm not mistaken. I think that her compatriot is the champion, Tan Zhangyi. So,
okay.
Because she won the
well,
the
obviously,
World Cup.
Chess in China, especially in regards to where the women are concerned, are pretty much all three of the top best female chess players on the planet live in China. You could argue at this point with Hou Yifan, Zhu Wenjun, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Moving on, Danya Naroditsky, as I said, playing for the Hackers, and the Shock, the one and only Mamed Yarov. So don't go anywhere. The Pacific is just getting underway in just a moment. Robert, I think you and I are going to sign off.
Yeah, I mean,
your final thoughts as we review and show the full matchups and what the results have been here before we let everybody go and get ready for David and Ben?
Yeah, I just more disappointment in Montreal for the Chessbrahs. Before the season started, I discussed how they lost some of their top guns, and people were getting mad at me for kind of disparaging the Chessbrahs. But it's played out time and time again. They've gotten a bit unlucky with some of their results. I'll give them credit for that. But it's not the team that they were last year. And I think that Pittsburgh has proven their might week after week. Minnesota is clearly a force. And St. Louis finally showing some life and getting back into the playoff hunt here. And for the Pacific Division, I think the Rio Grande Ospreys, despite having half out of 5 this far, are going to be the top scoring team of the week because I don't like the Seattle lineup that's put out. Hikaru Nakamura is not playing. I think it's a pretty weak lineup there. And, of course, the China-San Jose match is the one I'll be eating food and watching that one because I need to order food because I'm very, very, very hungry.
You're hangry?
I'm not hangry. I'm actually pretty calm, but I am hungry. And it's my Valentine's Day meal alone post-chess commentary. So,
well, before we let you go, I can't, as much as I regret opportunities to let you gloat or brag, I have to tell everybody that all of your noise that you made about those on your fantasy team turned out to be true, because as of this moment, yours truly, not me, but the my co-host here, my wingman, is tied for first in this week's Fantasy Chess League contest. So not eligible for the $10,000 prize. You no longer have the perfect bracket needed for that, but you are on your way to getting a Diamond membership extension, buddy. So pretty psyched for you in regards to that. And so there you go, everybody. If you're not playing fantasy chess, it's officially a you problem. You got to play. It's a ton of fun. I also play, but I never do well enough for me to gloat about anything. Maybe Greg could at least check if I had Rosenthal on my team. I am curious about that. But all right, the Pro Chess League rages on. Remember what all of these teams from around the world are playing for as you look at our map, colored by their division. A lot of money. And some big announcements coming very, very soon as we can make it official as to what and how and where and why the Pro Chess League Finals will be something that we hope to really just be the kind of event and fun thing that changes the chess world moving forward. So that's all I'll say about that. But that's what these teams are playing for. Robert, we're going to bounce out, and I appreciate you flying alongside me, buddy.
Always a pleasure, and no better day than Valentine's Day.
All right.